Hello there, and welcome to the Whispering Universes channel. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the most intimate architecture of your mind, where time doesn't flow in straight lines and the past exists only as a present experience. We're going to explore a soft paradox that lives at the very heart of human consciousness, the strange truth that your memories are not recordings of what happened, but creative acts happening right now. Close your eyes for a moment and remember something from your childhood. Perhaps the smell of your grandmother's kitchen or the feeling of grass beneath your bare feet on a summer afternoon. What you're experiencing in this moment isn't the past visiting you, it's your brain right now, constructing something that feels like the past, from scattered fragments stored across different regions of your neural landscape. This novelty principle explains why your first apartment, first serious relationship, or first real job creates such vivid memories compared to your 10th apartment, relationship, or job change. The brain allocates more attention and processing resources to novel experiences, creating richer, more detailed memory traces that are easier to retrieve later. The emotional intensity of experiences during the reminiscence bump period also contributes to their memorability. Adolescence and early adulthood are times of heightened emotional reactivity when everything feels more significant and intense. The neurobiological systems that tag memories for importance, particularly the amygdala and its connections to memory formation centers, are highly active during this developmental period. Dr. Antonio Damasio's research on emotion and memory reveals that emotional arousal during encoding creates stronger, more persistent memories. The reminiscence bump years are characterized by intense emotional experiences: first love, heartbreak, academic and career pressures, identity crises, and the excitement of new freedoms. These emotionally charged experiences create memory traces that remain vivid decades later. Cultural scripts and social expectations also shape the reminiscence bump by defining which life experiences should be meaningful and memorable. Most cultures emphasize the importance of adolescent and early adult milestones, graduations, first jobs, marriages, early career achievements. This cultural emphasis increases attention to experiences during this period and provides frameworks for understanding their significance. The concept of crystallized time helps explain why certain periods of life generate more memorable experiences than others. During the reminiscence bump years, you're actively constructing the fundamental narratives that will define your adult identity. These formative experiences become crystallized into memory as foundational elements of your personal story. Life transition periods during the reminiscence bump create natural memory boundaries that enhance distinctiveness and recall. Starting college, entering the workforce, getting married, or moving to new cities all create discrete chapters in your life story. These transitions provide temporal landmarks that help organize and retrieve memories from this period. The social context of the reminiscence bump years also contributes to memory formation. This is typically a period of intense social activity when you're forming friendships, romantic relationships, and professional networks that may last throughout your life. The social significance of these relationships creates shared memories that are rehearsed and reinforced through ongoing social interaction. Music provides one of the most powerful examples of the reminiscence bump phenomenon. The songs you listen to during your teens and 20s often remain your favorites throughout life, creating what researchers call the musical reminiscence bump. These musical preferences seem to crystallize during identity formation and years and remain remarkably stable across subsequent decades. Dr. Krumhansel and Zucknick's research on musical memory reveals that people in their 60s and 70s show the strongest emotional responses to music from their teens and 20s, even when they haven't heard those songs for decades. The neural pathways formed during the reminiscence bump period appear to create lasting templates for musical preference and emotional response. The reminiscence bump has important implications for understanding psychological well-being across the lifespan. Older adults who have rich, positive memories from their reminiscence bump years show better psychological adjustment and life satisfaction. These formative memories serve as psychological resources that can provide comfort and meaning during later life challenges. Therapeutic applications of reminiscence bump research include life review therapy, where older adults are encouraged to explore and integrate memories from their formative years. This process can help resolve unfinished emotional business, extract meaning from past experiences, and maintain psychological coherence in the face of aging and loss. The digital age has created new challenges and opportunities related to the reminiscence bump. Social media platforms automatically surface memories from past years, potentially disrupting the natural reminiscence bump pattern by artificially emphasizing memories from all life periods equally. At the same time, comprehensive digital documentation of experiences during the reminiscence bump years might enhance memory formation and preservation. Cross-cultural research reveals that while the reminiscence bump phenomenon appears universal, its specific content varies across cultures and historical periods. Collectivistic cultures might emphasize family and community experiences during the bump period, while individualistic cultures focus more on personal achievement and self-discovery. Historical events that occur during the reminiscence bump years often become defining memories for entire generations. People who experience the Kennedy assassination, Woodstock, the Challenger explosion, or 9/11 during their teens and 20s often carry vivid memories of these events throughout their lives. These shared historical memories become part of generational identity. The implications of reminiscence bump research extend to education and personal development. Understanding that the teen and early adult years represent a critical period for memory formation can inform decisions about education, travel, and experience seeking during this time. Experiences during the reminiscence bump years literally become the foundation for lifelong memories. Individual differences in the reminiscence bump pattern relate to personality traits, life experiences, and cultural background. People with more adventurous, open personalities tend to have more pronounced reminiscence bumps, possibly because they seek out more novel and memorable experiences during these formative years. The relationship between the reminiscence bump and personal identity formation suggests that these vivid early memories serve important functions throughout life. They provide a stable sense of self that persists through later changes and challenges. When you ask yourself, "Who am I?" in later life, you often draw on memories from the reminiscence bump period to answer that question. Modern neuroscience has identified specific brain networks that show enhanced connectivity during the reminiscence bump years. The default mode network, which includes regions involved in self-referential thinking and autobiographical memory, shows particularly strong connectivity during adolescence and early adulthood. This enhanced connectivity may contribute to the formation of especially vivid and meaningful memories during this period. Sleep research reveals that memory consolidation processes may be particularly efficient during the reminiscence bump years. Young adults show optimal sleep architecture with robust slow-wave sleep and REM phases that support memory consolidation. This optimal sleep may contribute to the formation of the vivid, well-consolidated memories that characterize the reminiscence bump. Cross-cultural research reveals that while the reminiscence bump phenomenon appears universal, its specific content varies across cultures and historical periods. Collectivistic cultures might emphasize family and community experiences during the bump period, while individualistic cultures focus more on personal achievement and self-discovery. Historical events that occur during the reminiscence bump years often become defining memories for entire generations. People who experience the Kennedy assassination, Woodstock, the Challenger explosion, or 9/11 during their teens and 20s often carry vivid memories of these events throughout their lives. These shared historical memories become part of generational identity. The implications of reminiscence bump research extend to education and personal development. Understanding that the teen and early adult years represent a critical period for memory formation can inform decisions about education, travel, and experience seeking during this time. Experiences during the reminiscence bump years literally become the foundation for lifelong memories. Individual differences in the reminiscence bump pattern relate to personality traits, life experiences, and cultural background. People with more adventurous, open personalities tend to have more pronounced reminiscence bumps, possibly because they seek out more novel and memorable experiences during these formative years. The relationship between the reminiscence bump and personal identity formation suggests that these vivid early memories serve important functions throughout life. They provide a stable sense of self that persists through later changes and challenges. When you ask yourself, "Who am I?" in later life, you often draw on memories from the reminiscence bump period to answer that question. Modern neuroscience has identified specific brain networks that show enhanced connectivity during the reminiscence bump years. The default mode network, which includes regions involved in self-referential thinking and autobiographical memory, shows particularly strong connectivity during adolescence and early adulthood. This enhanced connectivity may contribute to the formation of especially vivid and meaningful memories during this period. Sleep research reveals that memory consolidation processes may be particularly efficient during the reminiscence bump years. Young adults show optimal sleep architecture with robust slow-wave sleep and REM phases that support memory consolidation. This optimal sleep may contribute to the formation of the vivid, well-consolidated memories that characterize the reminiscence bump. Understanding the reminiscence bump can help you make more intentional choices about how to invest your attention and energy during these crucial years. While you can't extend the neurobiological window that creates the reminiscence bump, you can choose experiences that will provide rich material for lifelong memories. The phenomenon also offers comfort to older adults who might worry about memory decline. The reminiscence bump demonstrates that your brain naturally preserves the most formative and meaningful experiences from your life, creating a highlight reel that remains accessible even as other memories fade. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might find memories from your own reminiscence bump period rising to consciousness with particular vividness. These formative experiences from your teens and 20s carry special weight because they were encoded during a unique neurobiological window when your brain was optimally configured for creating lasting, meaningful memories. Let yourself appreciate how these reminiscence bump memories continue to shape your sense of identity and meaning decades after they were formed. They represent your mind's wisdom in preserving the experiences that were most crucial for your development into the person you've become. In the gentle space between waking and sleeping, these highlighted memories from your past connect with your present moment, creating the continuity of identity that allows you to remain yourself across all the changes and challenges of a human lifetime. Take a moment to remember your last birthday. Notice how the memory arrives not as a complete, high-definition recording, but as fragments assembling themselves into something that feels like a coherent experience. Perhaps you recall the taste of cake before you see the faces around the table. Maybe you remember the feeling of surprise before you can place exactly what surprised you. This is your first clue that memory works very differently than you might imagine. Your brain is not a video camera. It doesn't record life in neat, chronological files waiting to be replayed. Instead, memory is a reconstruction process, more like an archaeological dig, where scattered artifacts are assembled into a plausible story about the past. Every time you remember something, your brain gathers fragments stored across different neural regions and reconstructs them into what feels like a unified experience. When you experienced your birthday, different aspects of that event were processed and stored by different brain systems. The visual cortex encoded what you saw: the colors, shapes, and movements. The auditory cortex captured sounds, voices, music, the whisper of wrapping paper being torn. Your olfactory system stored the rich scents, while your emotional centers, particularly the amygdala, tagged the event with feelings of joy, surprise, or contentment. These fragments weren't stored together like scenes in a movie. Instead, they were distributed across your brain's neural networks, connected by gossamer threads of association. When you remember your birthday now, your brain reactivates these scattered neural patterns and weaves them back together. But here's the remarkable part. This reconstruction process is not passive playback. It's active creation. Neuroscientist Lynn Nadell discovered that memories don't just fade with time, they transform. Each time you recall a memory, it becomes neurochemically unstable, entering what researchers call a labile state. During this window of reconsolidation, the memory can be updated, modified, or even corrupted before being stored again. This means that the very act of remembering changes what is remembered. Elizabeth Loftus, one of the most influential memory researchers of our time, demonstrated this malleability through elegant experiments that revealed how easily false memories can be implanted. In her studies, she showed that people could be convinced they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, or that they had seen Bugs Bunny at Disneyland impossible, since Bugs Bunny is a Warner Brothers character. Her work revealed that memory is not a faithful recorder of the past, but a creative system that prioritizes coherence over accuracy. This reconstruction process serves important adaptive functions. Your brain doesn't have unlimited storage capacity, so it must be selective about what to preserve and how to preserve it. Instead of storing every mundane detail of every moment, your memory system extracts meaning, identifies patterns, and constructs narratives that help you navigate future situations. Consider how this works with something as simple as remembering faces. You don't store every exact configuration of light and shadow that ever fell across a person's features. Instead, your brain extracts essential characteristics: the curve of a smile, the color of eyes, the general structure of facial features, and stores these as patterns. When you encounter that person again, your brain reconstructs their face from these stored patterns, which is why people sometimes look slightly different than you remembered, even though they haven't changed. This reconstructive process explains many curious features of memory. Hindsight, bias, the tendency to remember your past predictions as more accurate than they actually were, occurs because your brain updates memories of past thoughts to align with current knowledge. When you learn the outcome of an election, your memory of how confident you felt about the winner gets subtly adjusted to match the new information. The brain's preference for narrative coherence over literal accuracy also explains why your memories often feel more vivid and dramatic than the original events. Your memory system is like a skilled storyteller, emphasizing important details, smoothing over inconsistencies, and creating emotional resonance. This is why childhood memories often have an almost mythical quality. Your brain has been refining and enhancing these stories for years, distilling them into their most meaningful essence. This reconstructive nature of memory has profound implications for how you understand yourself. Your sense of personal identity is built largely from memories, but if those memories are constantly being updated and modified, then your sense of self is also fluid and evolving. You are not the same person who experienced your last birthday, not just because time has passed, but because the very memories that define you have been subtly transformed by each act of remembering. Modern neuroscience has revealed the neural mechanisms underlying this process. When you form a memory, networks of neurons create new connections, strengthening some synapses and weakening others. This process, called synaptic plasticity, is captured in the phrase, "neurons that fire together wire together." But the remarkable discovery is that this plasticity continues every time you access a memory. Each recall activates the neural network and makes it vulnerable to modification. Sleep plays a crucial role in this memory transformation process. During slow-wave sleep, your brain replays the day's experiences, but not as exact reproductions. Instead, these replay events extract patterns, combine new experiences with existing knowledge, and gradually integrate recent memories into your long-term memory networks. This is why you sometimes wake up with new insights about yesterday's events. Your sleeping brain has been actively processing and reorganizing your memories. The reconstructive nature of memory also explains why multiple people can witness the same event and remember it differently. Each person's brain filters the experience through their existing knowledge, emotional state, and attention patterns, storing different aspects and reconstructing them according to their unique neural architecture. There is no single, objective version of any experienced event, only multiple, subjective reconstructions. This understanding revolutionizes how we think about the relationship between past and present. Your memories are not fixed artifacts from bygone eras, but living, evolving constructions that exist only in the present moment of remembering. The past, as you experience it, is actually a present moment phenomenon, created by your brain's remarkable ability to reconstruct meaningful experiences from stored fragments. As you drift towards sleep tonight, notice how your memories begin to loosen their moorings to literal truth and drift toward the more fluid realm of dream logic. This transition reveals something profound about the nature of memory itself. It has always been more dreamlike than you realized, more creative than factual, more about meaning than accuracy. In the hypnagogic state between waking and sleeping, memory reveals its true nature as an ongoing creative process, constructing the story of who you are from the beautiful, ever-changing fragments of what you've experienced. Time feels solid, doesn't it? It seems to flow at a steady rate, measured precisely by clocks and calendars. But if you pay careful attention to your inner experience, you'll notice that time is actually remarkably elastic. An engaging conversation flies by in what feels like minutes, while a tedious meeting drags on endlessly. A childhood summer vacation seemed to last forever, while last month disappeared in a blur. This subjective experience of time, what psychologists call psychological time, reveals something profound about how your brain constructs temporal experience. Time, as you experience it, is not an external river carrying you along, but an internal creation, as personal and variable as your heartbeat. Your brain contains multiple timekeeping systems, each tracking different temporal scales and serving different functions. The circadian clock in your hypothalamus tracks the 24-hour cycle of light and dark. The cerebellum maintains precise timing for motor coordination, allowing you to catch a ball or play a musical instrument. The prefrontal cortex estimates durations and sequences and events, while the hippocampus creates the temporal scaffolding that holds your memories in chronological order. But here's where it gets fascinating. These different timing systems don't always agree with each other, and they're all influenced by your attention, emotion, and state of consciousness. This is why time perception varies so dramatically, depending on what you're experiencing. When you're completely absorbed in an activity, what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls flow state, your sense of time often disappears entirely. Hours can pass unnoticed when you're engaged in creative work, deep conversation, or challenging play. This happens because attention is the currency of time perception. When your attention is fully occupied by the present moment, there's no cognitive capacity left over to monitor the passage of time. Neuroscientist David Eagleman discovered that time perception is closely linked to the amount of new information your brain is processing. Novel experiences require more neural resources to encode and understand, which creates a sense of temporal expansion. This is why your first day in a new city feels much longer than your regular commute to work, even if they take the same amount of clock time. This explains the curious phenomenon of childhood time dilation. When you were young, a much higher percentage of your experiences were novel. Every day brought new discoveries, new challenges, new sensations to process and understand. Your brain was constantly adapting to new information, creating rich, detailed memories that now seem to span vast periods of time. A single summer vacation from childhood might contain more distinct, memorable moments than several adult years combined. Emotion acts as another powerful modifier of time perception. When you're afraid, time often seems to slow down, a phenomenon called tachypsychia. This isn't just a subjective illusion. It reflects real changes in how your brain processes information during threatening situations. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, triggers the release of stress hormones that enhance attention and memory formation. This creates more detailed encoding of the threatening event, which later creates the impression that it lasted longer than it actually did. David Eagleman tested this by having volunteers bungee jump while wearing a special watch that displayed numbers too rapidly to read under normal circumstances. He found that even though people reported time slowing down during the fall, they couldn't actually perceive time any more accurately than usual. The time dilation effect occurs during memory formation and recall, not during the actual experience. The oddball effect demonstrates another way your brain constructs time perception. When you encounter something unexpected in a sequence of routine events, the unusual moment seems to last longer. This happens because novel or surprising stimuli capture more attention and create more detailed memories. When you later recall the sequence, the memory-rich unusual event seems disproportionately long compared to the routine moments. Cultural influences also shape time perception in profound ways. In cultures that emphasize schedules and punctuality, people develop different relationships with time than in cultures that prioritize natural rhythms and social relationships. Language itself influences temporal experience. Some languages have multiple words for different types of time, while others treat time as circular rather than linear. The holiday paradox illustrates how memory and time perception interact in counterintuitive ways. When you're on vacation, days often seem to fly by quickly because you're enjoying yourself and not paying attention to time's passage. But when you look back on the vacation later, it seems to have lasted much longer than a similar period of routine life. This happens because vacation experiences are novel and emotionally rich, creating detailed memories that expand in retrospective time. Your brain's temporal construction becomes especially apparent during altered states of consciousness. Under anesthesia, time disappears entirely. One moment you're counting backward from 10, the next you're waking up hours later with no subjective experience of time passing. Psychedelic experiences can create profound distortions of time perception, with minutes feeling like hours or hours compressing into moments. Even normal sleep reveals the constructed nature of time. Dreams often contain impossible temporal sequences, events that seem to unfold over hours or days within minutes of REM sleep. This happens because the dreaming brain constructs narrative sequences without the usual constraints of physical time, revealing that temporal experience is more flexible than waking consciousness suggests. Meditation and contemplative practices can dramatically alter time perception by changing the quality of attention. When you focus intently on the present moment, time often seems to slow down or even stop. Advanced meditators report experiencing states where time perception becomes so altered that hours pass like minutes, or single moments expand into vast experiential territories. Age brings its own temporal peculiarities. As you accumulate more life experience, each new year represents a smaller proportion of your total lived experience, which may contribute to the sense that time accelerates as you get older. A year to a 10-year-old represents 10% of their entire life, while a year to a 50-year-old represents only 2%. This proportional relationship may influence how different ages experience the passage of time. The digital age has introduced new forms of temporal distortion. Social media creates an illusion of constant present moment urgency, while simultaneously flattening time by presenting information from different eras side by side. Video games can create powerful flow states that make hours disappear, while smartphones fragment attention in ways that make time feel choppy and disjointed. Neuroscientists have discovered that different neurotransmitter systems influence time perception in distinct ways. Dopamine, associated with reward and motivation, tends to speed up subjective time when levels are high and slow it down when levels are low. This is why time flies when you're excited about something and drags when you're bored or depressed. Understanding the elastic nature of time perception has practical implications for how you live your life. If you want to make time feel more expansive, seek out novel experiences and practice paying attention to the present moment. If you want time to pass quickly during unpleasant situations, try to occupy your attention with something else. The remarkable truth is that you have more control over your experience of time than you might realize. By understanding how your brain constructs temporal experience, you can learn to stretch moments of joy and compress periods of difficulty. You can cultivate the kind of rich, attentive awareness that makes life feel more spacious and meaningful. As you settle into sleep tonight, notice how your relationship with time begins to change. The urgency of clock time gives way to the natural rhythms of breathing and heartbeat. Past and future become less distinct, and the present moment expands to encompass everything. This is time perception, in its most natural state, not measured by external devices, but felt as the organic rhythm of consciousness itself, elastic and alive, responsive to the quality of your attention and the depth of your presence. Long before humans invented writing, we developed extraordinary techniques for storing and retrieving vast amounts of information using only the power of memory. The most remarkable of these techniques, known as the method of loci or the memory palace, reveals something profound about how your brain naturally organizes information in space and time. Imagine walking through your childhood home. You can probably navigate from room to room in your mind's eye, recalling the placement of furniture, the color of walls, the feeling of sunlight streaming through particular windows. This spatial memory is so vivid and persistent that you can access it decades later, even if the physical house has been torn down. This remarkable capacity exists because your brain is fundamentally a navigation system, evolved from ancestral minds that needed to remember the locations of food, water, shelter, and danger across vast landscapes. The ancient Greeks discovered that this spatial memory could be deliberately harnessed for storing any kind of information. Orators like Cicero would memorize entire speeches by mentally placing different parts of their argument in different rooms of an imagined building. As they delivered their speech, they would take a mental walk through this memory palace, collecting their thoughts from the locations where they had stored them. This technique works because of the way your hippocampus processes information. Nobel Prize winners John O'Keefe, May-Britt Moser, and Edvard Moser discovered specialized cells called place cells and grid cells that create an internal map of your environment. Place cells fire when you're in specific locations, while grid cells create a coordinate system that allows you to track your position and movement through space. But here's the remarkable discovery. These same neural systems that evolve for navigation also serve as the foundation for all your memories. The hippocampus doesn't just map physical space, it creates cognitive maps that organize all your experiences in memory. This is why remembering often feels like a journey through mental landscapes, and why spatial metaphors for memory feel so natural. Eleanor Maguire's famous study of London taxi drivers revealed the plasticity of this spatial memory system. London cabbies must memorize the knowledge, the locations of 25,000 streets and thousands of landmarks and destinations. Brain scans showed that veteran drivers had significantly larger posterior hippocampi than average, and that this enlargement correlated with years of experience navigating the city's complex street layout. This discovery revealed that your brain's memory system remains remarkably adaptable throughout your adult life. The neural networks that support spatial navigation and memory formation can be strengthened and expanded through use, like muscles growing stronger with exercise. Every time you learn a new route or remember where you placed an object, you're exercising the same ancient navigation circuits that your ancestors used to survive in the wild. The connection between space and memory runs even deeper than conscious navigation. Your brain automatically encodes spatial information along with every experience, creating what researchers call cognitive maps that organize your memories geographically. This is why returning to a place from your past often triggers floods of associated memories. The spatial context serves as a powerful retrieval cue that reactivates entire networks of associated experiences. Neuroscientist Lynn Nadell discovered that the hippocampus creates a spatial framework for all memories, not just those explicitly related to navigation. When you remember a conversation, your brain often also recalls where that conversation took place. When you think about a specific time period in your life, you might automatically visualize the places where you lived or worked during that era. This spatial organization of memory explains why environmental context has such powerful effects on learning and recall. Students who study in the same room where they'll take a test often perform better than those who study elsewhere. The physical environment becomes part of the memory trace, and returning to that environment helps reactivate the associated knowledge. Modern virtual environments are revealing new dimensions of spatial memory. Video game players develop detailed cognitive maps of digital worlds that can be as vivid and navigable as memories of real places. Some people report being able to navigate video game environments in their dreams, suggesting that the brain treats virtual spaces as legitimate territories for memory formation. The implications extend beyond gaming. Virtual reality therapy is being used to help people with PTSD by allowing them to revisit traumatic locations in a controlled, safe environment. The spatial context that triggers traumatic memories can also be used to help reprocess and integrate those experiences therapeutically. Sleep plays a crucial role in consolidating spatial memories. During slow-wave sleep, your brain replays the day's navigation experiences at high speed, strengthening the neural pathways that encode spatial information. Disrupted sleep can interfere with this consolidation process, leading to difficulties with spatial memory and navigation. The relationship between space and memory also reveals why architectural spaces have such profound effects on human psychology. The layout, lighting, and design of buildings can either support or hinder memory formation and recall. Libraries and museums are often designed with spatial navigation principles in mind, creating environments that naturally support learning and remembrance. Cultural differences in spatial cognition lead to different ways of organizing memory. Some cultures navigate primarily using cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, rather than relative directions, left, right, forward, back. People from these cultures develop remarkably accurate internal compass systems and organize their memories according to absolute spatial coordinates rather than relative spatial relationships. The memory palace technique remains one of the most powerful methods for deliberately improving memory performance. Modern memory champions use variations of this ancient technique to memorize incredible amounts of information, entire decks of cards, long sequences of numbers, or vast amounts of historical and scientific knowledge. They create detailed mental buildings and populate them with vivid, often bizarre images that make the information memorable. But you don't need to become a memory champion to benefit from understanding your brain's spatial organization of memory. Simply paying attention to where things happen in your life can strengthen your memory for those events. When you want to remember something important, try associating it with a specific location, or imagine placing it somewhere meaningful in your mental landscape. The deeper truth revealed by spatial memory research is that your mind is not an abstract information processor, but an embodied navigation system that understands the world through movement and place. Your memories are not stored in filing cabinets, but arranged like landmarks across the cognitive territories you've explored throughout your life. Your hippocampus serves as both the GPS of your brain and the librarian of your experiences, creating spatial indices that allow you to find your way through both physical environments and the vast landscape of your memories. Every night during sleep, this ancient navigation system sorts through the day's journeys, both literal and metaphorical, strengthening the paths you'll need to find your way back to important experiences and knowledge. As you prepare for sleep tonight, imagine your mind as a vast palace with countless rooms, each containing treasures of memory and knowledge. Feel yourself as the navigator of this internal landscape, capable of traveling through decades of experience simply by choosing which corridors to explore. Let your consciousness settle into the deep spatial rhythms of your brain, where every memory has its place and every place tells its story, where navigation and remembrance merge into the ancient dance of mind, finding its way through the territories of experience. Close your eyes and recall your earliest memory. Perhaps it's a fragment of sensation, the feeling of warm sand between your toes, the taste of birthday cake, the sound of your mother's voice calling your name. Notice how this memory has a different quality than your recollection of what you did last Tuesday. Childhood memories seem to glow with an inner light, suffused with an almost magical vividness that adult memories rarely match. This difference isn't merely nostalgic, it reflects fundamental differences in how the developing brain processes and stores experiences. Understanding why childhood memories feel so different reveals profound truths about consciousness, learning, and the nature of human development. The young brain exists in a state that neuroscientist Alison Gopnik calls lantern consciousness, in contrast to the spotlight consciousness of adulthood. Adult attention works like a focused beam, selectively illuminating specific details while leaving others in shadow. Children's attention, however, operates more like a lantern, casting light broadly and taking in everything with equal intensity. This difference shows up dramatically in brain imaging studies. Children's brains show much more widespread activation when processing new information, with neural networks lighting up across multiple regions simultaneously. Adults show more focused, efficient patterns of brain activity, with well-established neural highways directing attention toward relevant information while filtering out distractions. This broad, unfocused attention of childhood creates memories with a unique quality of presence and immediacy. Without the adult brain's sophisticated filtering systems, children encode rich sensory details that adults typically ignore. The texture of a playground surface, the exact quality of afternoon light, and the complex soundscape of family conversations. All these details get woven into childhood memories because the developing brain hasn't yet learned what to ignore. Neuroscientist Jay Geed discovered that the childhood brain undergoes a remarkable process called synaptic exuberance. Young brains form neural connections at an extraordinary rate, creating far more synapses than will ultimately be needed. This neural overproduction means children's brains are incredibly plastic and capable of forming connections that would be impossible in the more streamlined adult brain. This synaptic abundance explains why childhood learning feels so different from adult learning. Children don't just acquire new information, they fundamentally reshape their neural architecture with each experience. Every interaction literally rewires their brain, creating the rich, interconnected networks that will support lifelong learning and memory. The process of synaptic pruning that occurs during adolescence eliminates many of these early connections, keeping only those that prove useful and frequently used. This pruning is essential for efficient adult brain function, but it also means that the neural substrate of childhood memories becomes increasingly unique and irreplaceable as you age. Language development adds another layer to the distinctive nature of childhood memories. Very young children experience the world before they have words to describe it, creating what psychologists call pre-verbal memories. These memories are encoded in sensory, emotional, and motor systems rather than linguistic networks, giving them a quality that can be difficult to access through normal verbal recall. As language develops, it begins to shape how experiences are encoded and remembered. Children learning their first language are simultaneously learning how their culture categorizes and understands reality. The words available to describe emotions, colors, spatial relationships, and social situations all influence how experiences are perceived and stored in memory. This linguistic shaping means that childhood memories often contain traces of cognitive schemas that were later revised or replaced. A child's understanding of concepts like time, causality, and social relationships differs significantly from adult understanding, and these developmental differences become preserved in memory, like fossils of earlier ways of thinking. The emotional intensity of childhood memories reflects the developing brain's heightened neuroplasticity and the child's relative lack of emotional regulation skills. Without sophisticated prefrontal cortex development, children experience emotions more directly and intensely than adults. Joy feels more joyful, fear feels more terrifying, and wonder feels more wonderful because the neural brakes that moderate adult emotional responses haven't fully developed. This emotional intensity serves important developmental functions. Strong emotions enhance memory formation, ensuring that important learning experiences are deeply encoded. The fear that keeps a child away from dangerous situations, the joy that reinforces social bonding, the curiosity that drives exploration. All these emotions create lasting memories that guide future behavior. The social context of childhood also contributes to the unique quality of these memories. Children exist in a state of profound dependency on adult caregivers, which creates experiences of intimacy and vulnerability that are rarely replicated in adult life. The feeling of being completely cared for, the trust required to let adults guide your exploration of the world, the gradual discovery of your own agency. These experiences become encoded in memory with the full emotional weight of their developmental significance. Cultural anthropologist Beatrice Whiting observed that childhood memories often contain traces of magical thinking, the natural tendency of young minds to attribute agency and intention to inanimate objects, to believe in the possibility of impossible things, and to experience the world as fundamentally alive and responsive. This magical quality doesn't disappear from memory, even after rational adult thinking develops. Instead, it remains as an enchanted layer within childhood recollections. The developing sense of time in childhood also contributes to the distinctive nature of these memories. Young children live primarily in an eternal present, without the sophisticated time concepts that allow adults to precisely sequence events. This presentness gets encoded into childhood memories, giving them a quality of immediacy that transcends their actual temporal distance. Neuroscientist Patricia Bauer discovered that the development of autobiographical memory follows a predictable pattern called childhood amnesia, followed by the reminiscence bump. Most adults remember very little from before age 3 or 4, but memories from middle childhood through early adulthood are recalled with unusual vividness and frequency throughout life. This pattern reflects the maturation of the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, brain regions essential for forming and retrieving autobiographical memories. The neural networks that support adult-like memory formation don't fully mature until late childhood, which explains both the scarcity of very early memories and the particular vividness of memories from the school-age years. The social and cultural environment of childhood also shapes memory formation in ways that become invisible to adult consciousness. Children absorb the values, assumptions, and worldviews of their families and communities without conscious awareness, and these early acquisitions become so fundamental to their identity that they're rarely questioned or even recognized as learned. Modern neuroscience suggests that childhood memories may be preserved in the brain using different neural mechanisms than adult memories. The higher neuroplasticity of the young brain may create more durable memory traces, while the emotional intensity of childhood experiences may recruit memory systems that are less active in routine adult experience. The implications of this research extend beyond academic psychology. Understanding how childhood memories form and persist can help parents and educators create environments that support healthy memory formation. It can also help therapists understand how early experiences continue to influence adult behavior and emotional responses. Perhaps most importantly, recognizing the unique nature of childhood memories can help you appreciate the remarkable journey of human development. Every adult brain carries within it traces of the lantern consciousness of childhood neural patterns that preserve not just what happened to you as a child, but how it felt to experience the world with a mind that was still forming its most basic categories of understanding. As you drift towards sleep tonight, allow yourself to remember what it felt like to see the world through young eyes. Let your consciousness soften its adult focus and remember the time when every experience was new, when the boundary between self and world was more permeable, when the ordinary world pulsed with magic and possibility. These memories glow differently because they preserve the light of a consciousness that was itself different, more open, more plastic, more alive to the wonder of simply being here in this strange and beautiful world. You turn a corner in an unfamiliar city, and suddenly the world shimmers with impossible familiarity. The arrangement of buildings, the quality of light, the distant sound of traffic, everything feels exactly as though you've experienced this precise moment before, even though you know rationally that you haven't. This is déjà vu, one of the most mysterious and unsettling experiences of human consciousness. Nearly everyone has felt this strange sensation at least once. In those eerie moments, time seems to fold in on itself, creating a brief window where past and present collapse into an impossible simultaneity. You stand at the intersection of the familiar and the unknown, experiencing recognition without recollection, knowing without remembering. Neuroscientist Chris Moulin has spent decades studying this phenomenon, and his research reveals that déjà vu offers a unique window into the complex mechanics of memory and consciousness. Far from being supernatural or meaningless, déjà vu represents a fascinating malfunction in the brain's recognition systems, a glitch that illuminates the normally invisible processes by which your mind distinguishes between past and present experience. The key to understanding déjà vu lies in recognizing that your brain operates multiple memory systems simultaneously. When you encounter a new situation, several different neural networks evaluate the incoming information. One system involving the hippocampus and temporal lobes searches for explicit memories that match the current experience. Another system centered in the perihinal cortex generates a sense of familiarity independent of specific recollection. Normally, these systems work in harmony. When you see your childhood friend, both recognition and recollection activate together. You both feel familiar with their face and remember specific experiences you've shared. But sometimes these systems can become temporarily desynchronized, creating the peculiar experience of familiarity without accompanying memories. Déjà vu occurs when the familiarity system activates without corresponding activation in the recollection system. Your brain generates a strong sense that you've experienced this moment before, but it cannot access any specific memory to explain that feeling. This creates the characteristic sensation of déjà vu, impossible familiarity, coupled with the frustrating inability to place when or where you've encountered this situation previously. Brain imaging studies have revealed the neural signature of déjà vu experiences. During these episodes, researchers observe increased activity in the temporal lobes, particularly in regions responsible for memory processing and emotional evaluation. There's also heightened activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region involved in conflict monitoring. Essentially, your brain recognizing that something doesn't quite add up. The temporal lobe epilepsy research has provided some of the most illuminating insights into déjà vu. Patients with this condition often experience frequent, intense déjà vu episodes as part of their seizures. By studying these patients, researchers have identified specific brain regions whose dysfunction can trigger the experience. Electrical stimulation of certain temporal lobe areas can reliably induce déjà vu-like sensations, confirming the neural basis of this phenomenon. One of the most intriguing aspects of déjà vu is its relationship to age and fatigue. Young adults experience déjà vu most frequently, with episodes becoming less common as people age. This pattern suggests that déjà vu may be related to the brain's neural flexibility and the efficiency of memory processing systems. A younger, more plastic brain may be more prone to the kind of temporal desynchronization that creates déjà vu experiences. Stress and fatigue also increase the likelihood of déjà vu episodes. When your brain is operating under suboptimal conditions, the precise timing mechanisms that normally coordinate memory systems can become disrupted. This is why déjà vu often occurs when you're tired, stressed, or experiencing strong emotions, precisely the conditions that can throw off the delicate synchronization required for normal memory processing. Recent research has revealed that déjà vu exists on a spectrum of memory illusions, each revealing different aspects of how your brain constructs the sense of temporal experience. Jamais vu, the opposite sensation, where familiar situations feel strangely unfamiliar, occurs when the recollection system functions normally, but the familiarity system fails to activate. You might look at a word you've written dozens of times and suddenly question whether it's spelled correctly, or walk into your own home and feel like you've never seen it before. Presque vu represents another point on this spectrum, the frustrating tip of the tongue sensation, where you feel certain you know something but cannot quite access it. This occurs when partial activation of memory networks creates strong feelings of knowing without full recall. Your brain generates confidence that the information is available somewhere in memory, but the complete retrieval pathway remains blocked. The neuroscientist Akira O'Connor has proposed that déjà vu might actually serve an important function in memory processing. Rather than being a meaningless glitch, these experiences might represent your brain's quality control system at work. When conflicting signals about familiarity and recollection arise, the conscious experience of déjà vu might trigger additional processing that helps resolve the conflict and improve future memory accuracy. This theory suggests that the unsettling feeling of déjà vu serves as a signal that something in your memory processing requires attention. The conscious recognition that something feels wrong might activate additional neural resources to evaluate the situation more carefully, ultimately leading to more accurate memory judgments. Cultural and historical perspectives on déjà vu reveal how different societies have interpreted this universal human experience. The French term déjà vu literally means already seen, but different cultures have developed their own concepts for similar experiences. Some spiritual traditions interpret déjà vu as evidence of past lives or glimpses of predetermined destiny, while others see it as a sign of spiritual awakening or psychic sensitivity. The phenomenon has captured the imagination of artists and writers throughout history. Marcel Proust built his literary masterpiece In Search of Lost Time around similar moments where past and present collapse into each other through involuntary memory. The experience has appeared in countless films and novels as a metaphor for the mystery of consciousness and the strange relationship between mind and time. Modern digital culture has created new contexts for déjà vu-like experiences. Social media algorithms can create artificial familiarity by repeatedly exposing us to similar content, while virtual reality environments can trigger déjà vu by presenting computer-generated scenes that feel simultaneously novel and familiar. These technological contexts may be creating new forms of memory illusion that our brains haven't evolved mechanisms to handle effectively. Understanding déjà vu also provides insights into more serious memory disorders. Patients with certain types of dementia can experience chronic déjà vu that becomes distressing and disorienting. In these cases, the normal mechanisms that resolve memory conflicts become compromised, leading to persistent feelings of false familiarity that interfere with daily functioning. The research on déjà vu reveals something profound about the nature of conscious experience. Your sense of living in a coherent present moment depends on incredibly complex neural processes that usually operate below the threshold of awareness. Déjà vu offers a rare glimpse into these hidden mechanisms, revealing how your brain constructs the experience of time and memory from the coordinated activity of multiple neural systems. Perhaps most remarkably, déjà vu demonstrates that your experience of the present moment is not as immediate and transparent as it seems. What feels like direct, unmediated contact with reality is actually the product of sophisticated neural processing that can occasionally reveal its constructed nature through experiences like déjà vu. As you settle into sleep tonight, you might notice how the boundary between waking and dreaming creates its own forms of temporal confusion. Dreams often contain their own versions of déjà vu, where impossible familiarities arise without explanation. In the fluid consciousness of the hypnagogic state, past and present mingle freely, offering glimpses into the constructed nature of all temporal experience. Let yourself drift into that liminal space where memory and perception dance together, where the familiar and the unknown merge into the eternal mystery of consciousness experiencing itself through time. In the gentle confusion between sleeping and waking, you might find echoes of that same temporal shimmer that creates déjà vu, the beautiful, the mysterious process by which your brain weaves the threads of memory and perception into the seamless tapestry of present moment experience. In 1885, German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus made a discovery that would fundamentally change how we understand memory. Working alone in his study, he spent months memorizing lists of nonsense syllables and then testing how much he could recall after various intervals. What he found was both sobering and liberating. We forget most of what we experience, and we forget it remarkably quickly. The forgetting curve that Ebbinghaus discovered shows that without reinforcement, you lose roughly half of newly learned information within an hour, and up to 90% within a week. This might seem like a devastating design flaw in human memory, but modern neuroscience reveals that forgetting is not a bug in the system, it's one of its most essential features. Your brain is constantly flooded with information. Every second, your sensory systems deliver millions of bits of data about your environment. Your eyes track moving objects, shifting light patterns, and countless visual details. Your ears detect layers of sound, from background noise to meaningful speech. Your other senses contribute their own streams of information about touch, smell, taste, and internal body states. If your brain tried to store all of this information with equal fidelity, you would quickly face a catastrophic storage problem. Worse, you would become paralyzed by irrelevant details, unable to distinguish between important information and meaningless noise. Forgetting acts as an intelligent filter, allowing your memory system to retain what matters while discarding what doesn't. This process begins immediately upon encoding. Your brain doesn't wait to see if information might be useful. Later, it starts evaluating and filtering from the moment of initial perception. Attention acts as the first gate, determining what information receives enough processing to enter working memory. Only a fraction of attended information makes it into long-term storage, and even then, the consolidation process continues to edit and refine what gets preserved. Sleep plays a crucial role in this intelligent forgetting process. During slow-wave sleep, your brain doesn't simply file away the day's experiences like a passive recording device. Instead, it actively decides what to keep and what to discard. Recent memories compete for consolidation, with emotionally significant, frequently rehearsed, or novel information winning the battle for permanent storage. Neuroscientist Lynn Nadel discovered that sleep consolidation involves a complex dialogue between the hippocampus and neocortex. The hippocampus replays recent experiences, but these replays are not exact reproductions. Instead, they're edited versions that extract patterns, combine related information, and integrate new experiences with existing knowledge structures. This process naturally filters out redundant or irrelevant details. The forgetting process becomes even more sophisticated during REM sleep. Dreams appear to serve as a kind of memory sandbox, where the brain can experiment with different combinations and associations of stored information. The bizarre, illogical nature of dreams may reflect this experimental process, or your brain trying out different ways to organize and connect memories without the constraints of waking logic. Modern neuroscience has identified specific mechanisms that actively promote forgetting. These aren't passive decay processes, but active neural systems that deliberately weaken or eliminate memory traces. For example, researchers have discovered forgetting neurons in the brain that specifically work to erase memories that are no longer needed. This active forgetting requires energy and neural resources, demonstrating that your brain considers forgetting important enough to invest significant effort in the process. One type of forgetting, called interference, occurs when new information competes with old information for storage and retrieval. This might seem problematic, but it actually serves important adaptive functions. If you move to a new apartment, you want your brain to update your "where I live" information rather than maintaining equal access to all your previous addresses. Interference helps ensure that your most current and relevant knowledge takes priority over outdated information. Another form of forgetting, called decay, involves the natural weakening of memory traces over time. Neural connections that aren't regularly used become weaker and eventually disappear altogether. This process ensures that your brain's limited storage capacity is used efficiently, with frequently accessed information, maintaining strong neural pathways while unused information fades away. Retrieval-induced forgetting represents one of the most fascinating aspects of the forgetting process. When you recall a specific memory, you don't just strengthen that memory, you actually weaken related memories that compete with it for retrieval. This competitive process helps ensure that the most relevant and accurate information becomes dominant, while alternative versions or conflicting details are suppressed. The emotional regulation functions of forgetting are particularly important for mental health. Traumatic or distressing experiences often fade more quickly than positive experiences, a phenomenon called the fading affect bias. This isn't just passive decay. Your brain actively works to reduce the emotional impact of negative memories while preserving the factual information that might be useful for future decision-making. Daniel Schachter, one of the leading memory researchers, has identified forgetting as one of the 7 sins of memory, but he emphasizes that these sins are actually adaptive features that serve important functions. The bias toward forgetting negative emotions helps you maintain psychological resilience. The tendency to forget specific details while retaining general patterns helps you extract useful knowledge from experience without being overwhelmed by irrelevant specifics. Cultural attitudes toward forgetting vary dramatically across societies and historical periods. Some cultures emphasize the importance of preserving exact details of traditions and practices, while others focus on adapting and evolving cultural knowledge. The digital age has created new anxieties about forgetting, as external storage systems make it possible to preserve vast amounts of information that would naturally be forgotten. Victor Meyer-Schönberger, a researcher studying digital memory, argues that the natural forgetting process is being disrupted by digital technologies that can store information indefinitely. He suggests that this disruption of natural forgetting cycles might have unexpected psychological and social consequences, as individuals and societies lose the adaptive benefits of letting go of outdated or irrelevant information. The relationship between forgetting and creativity reveals another important function of this process. Successful problem-solving often requires letting go of ineffective approaches and outdated assumptions. The forgetting process helps clear mental space for new ideas and approaches by weakening attachment to previous solutions that didn't work. Studies of highly creative individuals show that they often have slightly worse memory for specific details, but better ability to see patterns and make novel connections between disparate pieces of information. This suggests that optimal creativity might require a balance between remembering and forgetting, retaining enough information to have raw material for creative work, while forgetting enough details to avoid being constrained by previous past approaches. The forgetting curve also reveals why spaced repetition is such an effective learning strategy. By reviewing information just as it's beginning to fade, you can strengthen memory traces while still benefiting from the filtering effects of the forgetting process. This creates strong, durable memories while avoiding the accumulation of unnecessary details. Understanding the gift of forgetting can change how you approach learning and memory in your daily life. Instead of fighting against natural forgetting processes, you can work with them. Focus your attention on information you want to remember, review important material at strategic intervals, and trust your brain's wisdom in letting go of details that aren't worth preserving. The forgetting process also has implications for how you understand personal identity and psychological healing. The natural fading of painful memories isn't a failure of memory, it's a feature that allows you to learn from difficult experiences without being permanently defined by them. Your ability to forget is directly connected to your capacity for growth, change, and resilience. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you can trust in the intelligence of your forgetting processes. Your brain will sort through the day's experiences, preserving what serves you and gently releasing what doesn't. This isn't loss, it's curation. Your sleeping mind is an artist, carefully selecting which details to preserve in the gallery of memory and which to let fade into the gentle darkness of forgotten things. Let yourself appreciate the gift of forgetting as you settle into rest. Tomorrow you'll wake with a mind that has been cleared of unnecessary details and strengthened in its most important knowledge. The forgetting curve isn't a limitation, it's liberation from the tyranny of perfect recall, a wise system that helps you carry forward what matters while leaving behind what would only weigh you down. The scent of cinnamon and vanilla drifts from a bakery window, and suddenly you're 8 years old again, watching your grandmother roll out pie dough in her sunny kitchen. For a moment, the present dissolves, and you're enveloped in the warmth of that long-ago afternoon, remembering how safe and loved you felt in her presence. This is nostalgia, a bittersweet longing for the past that feels almost more real than the present moment. Nostalgia has a complex history. The term was coined in 1688 by Swiss physician Johannes Hofer, who considered it a medical condition, literally homesickness, in its original Greek meaning. Early doctors treated nostalgia as a potentially fatal disorder that could afflict soldiers far from home or students living away from their families. The prescribed treatments included bloodletting, warm hypnotic emulsions, and in severe cases, returning the patient to their homeland. How dramatically our understanding has changed. Modern psychology reveals nostalgia not as a pathological condition, but as a fundamental human experience that serves important psychological functions. Far from being a simple longing for the past, nostalgia is an active process of meaning-making that helps you maintain psychological resilience, social connection, and personal identity. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio discovered that nostalgic experiences activate a unique pattern of brain networks. Unlike ordinary memory recall, which primarily involves the hippocampus and temporal lobes, nostalgia engages a broader coalition of brain regions, including areas involved in reward processing, self-reflection, and social cognition. This distributed activation explains why nostalgic memories feel different from regular memories. They're not just recollections, but complex emotional and social experiences. Dr. Clay Routledge, one of the leading researchers on nostalgia, has identified several key features that distinguish nostalgic memories from ordinary remembering. Nostalgic recollections typically involve significant other people, focus on personally meaningful events, and contain a mixture of happiness and longing. They often center on periods of transition or times when you felt a strong sense of belonging or purpose. Perhaps most importantly, nostalgic memories are highly selective. Your mind doesn't nostalgically recall the complete truth of past experiences. It reconstructs idealized versions that emphasize positive emotions and meaningful connections, while downplaying or completely forgetting negative aspects. This isn't a failure of memory, but an adaptive feature that serves important psychological functions. The rosy retrospection effect shows how nostalgia systematically reframes past experiences. Research shows that people consistently remember past events as more positive than they actually rated them when they occurred. A vacation that included delayed flights, bad weather, and disappointing accommodations becomes years later a wonderful adventure filled with meaningful moments and beautiful discoveries. This positive distortion serves several important functions. First, it helps maintain psychological well-being by ensuring that your autobiographical memory emphasizes positive experiences and personal growth. Second, it supports the development of a coherent personal narrative by creating a sense of meaningful progression through life. Third, it strengthens social bonds by emphasizing shared positive experiences with important people in your life. The neurochemistry of nostalgia reveals why these experiences feel so powerful and meaningful. Nostalgic recollections trigger the release of oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, which creates feelings of warmth and connection. They also activate the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine and creating the pleasurable feelings associated with nostalgic reflection. This neurochemical response helps explain why nostalgia often emerges during times of stress, loneliness, or uncertainty. When facing present difficulties, your brain can literally prescribe nostalgic memories as a form of emotional medicine. The warm feelings generated by recalling meaningful past experiences can provide comfort and resilience during challenging periods. Music provides one of the most powerful triggers for nostalgic experiences. The songs you listen to during adolescence and early adulthood often retain their ability to transport you back to those periods throughout your entire life. This happens because music encoding often occurs during emotionally intense periods when your brain is forming many new memories and neural connections. Neuroscientist Petter Janata discovered that music activates the medial prefrontal cortex, a brain region heavily involved in self-referential thinking and autobiographical memory. Songs from your past don't just trigger memories, they can temporarily recreate the neural states associated with earlier periods of your life, explaining why nostalgic music can feel like time travel. Scent provides another particularly potent nostalgic trigger, a phenomenon Marcel Proust immortalized in his famous passage about madeleines dipped in tea. The olfactory system has direct connections to the limbic system, particularly the hippocampus and amygdala, which means smells can trigger memories that feel especially vivid and emotionally intense. Cultural and generational factors significantly influence nostalgic experiences. Each generation develops collective nostalgic memories around shared cultural touchstones, music, movies, historical events, and social trends that defined their formative years. This collective nostalgia serves important social functions, creating bonds between people who shared similar experiences during their youth. The commercialization of nostalgia has become a major force in modern marketing and entertainment. Companies deliberately trigger nostalgic feelings to create positive associations with their products. The revival of retro fashions, the remaking of beloved movies, and the use of nostalgic music in advertising all exploit the emotional power of nostalgic memory to influence consumer behavior. Social media has created new forms of nostalgic experience through features like memories and throwback posts that automatically surface old content. These digital nostalgia triggers can create artificial nostalgic experiences based on algorithmic rather than organic memory processes, potentially disrupting the natural rhythms of nostalgic reflection. The timing of nostalgic experiences follows predictable patterns throughout life. Childhood and adolescent memories dominate nostalgic recollections, a phenomenon related to the reminiscence bump, where memories from ages 15 to 30 are recalled most frequently throughout life. This period coincides with identity formation and first experiences of independence, making these memories particularly rich sources for nostalgic reflection. Research by Dr. Christine Batcho has revealed important individual differences in nostalgic tendencies. Some people experience frequent, intense nostalgic feelings, while others rarely engage in nostalgic reflection. These differences relate to personality traits, attachment styles, and life experiences, but moderate levels of nostalgia appear to be associated with better psychological well-being. Healthy nostalgia differs from unhealthy rumination about the past. Adaptive nostalgic reflection involves a balanced acknowledgement that the past contained both positive and negative elements, while unhealthy nostalgia idealizes the past to such an extent that it interferes with present functioning or future planning. The social functions of nostalgia extend beyond individual psychology. Shared nostalgic experiences help strengthen relationships and create group identity. When friends or family members engage in nostalgic conversation about shared experiences, they're not just remembering, they're actively reinforcing their social bonds and creating meaning from their shared history. Nostalgia also serves important functions in the face of mortality awareness. Research shows that nostalgic reflection can reduce death anxiety by creating a sense of meaning and continuity in life. By connecting present identity to meaningful past experiences, nostalgia helps create a sense of psychological immortality that transcends awareness of physical mortality. The therapeutic applications of nostalgia are being explored in various clinical contexts. Reminiscence therapy uses structured, nostalgic reflection to help elderly individuals maintain cognitive function and emotional well-being. The positive emotions and sense of meaning generated by nostalgic memories can counteract depression and cognitive decline. Understanding how nostalgia rewrites history can help you use this natural process more effectively in your own life. Recognizing that nostalgic memories are reconstructed rather than recalled can help you appreciate their emotional value while maintaining realistic perspectives on past experiences. You can deliberately cultivate nostalgic reflection as a resource for resilience and meaning-making, while avoiding the trap of idealizing the past to such an extent that it diminishes present experience. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you might notice how the relaxed state of consciousness allows nostalgic memories to surface more freely. In the gentle transition between waking and sleeping, past and present mingle in ways that reveal the fluid, reconstructive nature of all memory. Let yourself appreciate how your mind carefully curates these memories, selecting and enhancing moments that continue to nourish your sense of meaning and connection. Nostalgia isn't about returning to the past. It's about bringing the past forward to enrich the present. Your nostalgic memories are gifts your mind gives to your current self, carefully wrapped in golden light and delivered precisely when you need them most. As you drift towards sleep, trust in this wise process of emotional curation, knowing that your mind will continue to transform raw experience into the meaningful stories that sustain and comfort you through all the seasons of your life. In the threshold moments between waking and sleeping, your consciousness enters a realm where the ordinary rules of time and logic begin to dissolve. This liminal state, known as the hypnagogic state, offers a unique window into the fluid nature of memory and the constructed character of normal waking consciousness. Here, in this drowsy borderland, memories float free from their usual moorings, combining and recombining in ways that reveal something profound about how your mind actually works. The hypnagogic state occurs during the transition from wakefulness to sleep, typically lasting anywhere from a few minutes to half an hour, depending on how quickly you fall asleep. During this period, your brainwaves shift from the beta rhythms of alert consciousness through the alpha waves of relaxation into the theta oscillations that characterize light sleep. But this isn't just a simple decrease in consciousness, it's a qualitatively different state with its own unique properties and possibilities. Thomas Edison, the prolific inventor, deliberately cultivated hypnagogic states to enhance his creative problem solving. He would nap in a chair while holding steel balls in his hands, with metal pans placed on the floor below. As he drifted into the hypnagogic state, his hands would relax and drop the balls, creating a crash that would wake him. He would then immediately record whatever insights or ideas had emerged during those precious moments of threshold consciousness. Edison wasn't alone in recognizing the creative potential of this state. Nikola Tesla reported receiving some of his most important inventions during hypnagogic episodes. Salvador Dali used similar techniques, calling his practice the slumber with a key method. He would hold a heavy key while napping, and when it fell from his relaxed hand, he would wake and paint whatever surreal images had emerged from his hypnagogic visions. Modern neuroscience has revealed why the hypnagogic state is so conducive to creative insights and novel associations. During this transitional period, the default mode network, a collection of brain regions that become active during rest, shows heightened activity while maintaining connections to sensory processing areas. This creates a unique neural configuration where internal mental activity remains rich and vivid while external awareness begins to fade. The neuroscientist Antonio Zadra has studied hypnagogic experiences extensively, documenting the rich variety of phenomena that can occur during this state. Hypnagogic hallucinations can involve any of the senses, visual images that dance behind closed eyelids, voices, or music that seem to come from nowhere, sensations of floating or falling, or even complex narrative sequences that feel like brief dreams. These experiences differ from both normal waking consciousness and REM dreams in important ways. Unlike dreams, which often involve complex narratives and emotional content, hypnagogic experiences tend to be more fragmentary and abstract. Unlike normal waking thoughts, they often involve impossible combinations of sensory information and logical contradictions that the drowsy mind accepts without question. The relaxed attention of the hypnagogic state allows memories to surface and combine in ways that would be impossible during focused waking consciousness. Past experiences that have no logical connection might suddenly merge into new configurations. Childhood memories might blend with recent events, creating hybrid recollections that feel simultaneously familiar and strange. This memory fluidity serves important functions for learning and problem solving. The hypnagogic state appears to facilitate the kind of remote associations that characterize creative insight. Problems that seemed intractable during focused attention might suddenly reveal novel solutions when approached from the relaxed, associative perspective of threshold consciousness. The Stanford psychologist William Dement discovered that the hypnagogic state plays an important role in memory consolidation. During this transitional period, the brain begins the process of integrating the day's experiences with existing knowledge structures. New information starts to find its place within established memory networks, and patterns that weren't apparent during waking experience might become visible. This consolidation process isn't merely organizational, it's creative. The hypnagogic brain doesn't just file away experiences, but actively searches for connections and meanings that might not have been apparent during the original encoding. A conversation from earlier in the day might suddenly connect with a book you read months ago, creating new insights about both experiences. In the threshold moments between waking and sleeping, your consciousness enters a realm where the ordinary rules of time and logic begin to dissolve. This liminal state, known as the hypnagogic state, offers a unique window into the fluid nature of memory and the constructed character of normal waking consciousness. Here, in this drowsy borderland, memories float free from their usual moorings, combining and recombining in ways that reveal something profound about how your mind actually works. The hypnagogic state occurs during the transition from wakefulness to sleep, typically lasting anywhere from a few minutes to half an hour, depending on how quickly you fall asleep. During this period, your brainwaves shift from the beta rhythms of alert consciousness through the alpha waves of relaxation into the theta oscillations that characterize light sleep. But this isn't just a simple decrease in consciousness, it's a qualitatively different state with its own unique properties and possibilities. Thomas Edison, the prolific inventor, deliberately cultivated hypnagogic states to enhance his creative problem solving. He would nap in a chair while holding steel balls in his hands, with metal pans placed on the floor below. As he drifted into the hypnagogic state, his hands would relax and drop the balls, creating a crash that would wake him. He would then immediately record whatever insights or ideas had emerged during those precious moments of threshold consciousness. Edison wasn't alone in recognizing the creative potential of this state. Nikola Tesla reported receiving some of his most important inventions during hypnagogic episodes. Salvador Dali used similar techniques, calling his practice the slumber with a key method. He would hold a heavy key while napping, and when it fell from his relaxed hand, he would wake and paint whatever surreal images had emerged from his hypnagogic visions. Modern neuroscience has revealed why the hypnagogic state is so conducive to creative insights and novel associations. During this transitional period, the default mode network, a collection of brain regions that become active during rest, shows heightened activity while maintaining connections to sensory processing areas. This creates a unique neural configuration where internal mental activity remains rich and vivid while external awareness begins to fade. The neuroscientist Antonio Zadra has studied hypnagogic experiences extensively, documenting the rich variety of phenomena that can occur during this state. Hypnagogic hallucinations can involve any of the senses, visual images that dance behind closed eyelids, voices, or music that seem to come from nowhere, sensations of floating or falling, or even complex narrative sequences that feel like brief dreams. These experiences differ from both normal waking consciousness and REM dreams in important ways. Unlike dreams, which often involve complex narratives and emotional content, hypnagogic experiences tend to be more fragmentary and abstract. Unlike normal waking thoughts, they often involve impossible combinations of sensory information and logical contradictions that the drowsy mind accepts without question. The relaxed attention of the hypnagogic state allows memories to surface and combine in ways that would be impossible during focused waking consciousness. Past experiences that have no logical connection might suddenly merge into new configurations. Childhood memories might blend with recent events, creating hybrid recollections that feel simultaneously familiar and strange. This memory fluidity serves important functions for learning and problem solving. The hypnagogic state appears to facilitate the kind of remote associations that characterize creative insight. Problems that seemed intractable during focused attention might suddenly reveal novel solutions when approached from the relaxed, associative perspective of threshold consciousness. The Stanford psychologist William Dement discovered that the hypnagogic state plays an important role in memory consolidation. During this transitional period, the brain begins the process of integrating the day's experiences with existing knowledge structures. New information starts to find its place within established memory networks, and patterns that weren't apparent during waking experience might become visible. This consolidation process isn't merely organizational, it's creative. The hypnagogic brain doesn't just file away experiences, but actively searches for connections and meanings that might not have been apparent during the original encoding. A conversation from earlier in the day might suddenly connect with a book you read months ago, creating new insights about both experiences. The temporal confusion that characterizes hypnagogic experiences reveals something profound about how consciousness normally constructs the experience of time. In this threshold state, past and present often become indistinguishable. You might remember having a conversation with someone who died years ago, or recall participating in events that haven't yet occurred. These temporal impossibilities don't trigger the usual logical corrections, because the hypnagogic mind operates according to different rules than waking consciousness. Hypnagogic experiences often involve a dissolution of the boundaries between self and environment. You might feel like you're merging with the room around you, or experience your thoughts as external voices speaking to you. This boundary dissolution reflects changes in the brain networks that normally maintain the sense of self as distinct from the surrounding world. The social psychologist Jerome Singer documented how hypnagogic experiences can involve conversations with imaginary interlocutors, internal dialogues that feel like interactions with external beings. These phantom conversations often provide new perspectives on personal problems or creative challenges, as if the relaxed mind can access viewpoints that are unavailable to normal waking consciousness. Cultural and historical perspectives on the hypnagogic state reveal how different societies have understood and utilized this threshold consciousness. Many contemplative traditions incorporate practices designed to cultivate awareness during the transition between waking and sleeping. Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga involves maintaining consciousness during the hypnagogic state as preparation for lucid dreaming and, ultimately, for maintaining awareness during the death process. The ancient Greeks believed that the hypnagogic state provided access to divine inspiration and prophetic visions. The practice of incubation, sleeping in sacred spaces to receive guidance through dreams, often focused specifically on the messages and images that emerged during the threshold period before sleep. Modern research has identified specific techniques for enhancing awareness during hypnagogic states. Progressive muscle relaxation, focused breathing, and gentle attention to the stream of consciousness can all help maintain awareness during the transition to sleep. Some practitioners develop the ability to remain conscious during hypnagogic experiences without disrupting the natural progression towards sleep. The neurochemistry of hypnagogic states involves complex interactions between multiple neurotransmitter systems. As dopamine and norepinephrine levels decrease, consciousness becomes less focused and more associative. Meanwhile, acetylcholine remains relatively active, supporting the vivid imagery and rich mental content that characterizes hypnagogic experiences. Individual differences in hypnagogic experiences reflect variations in brain chemistry, sleep patterns, and personality traits. Some people report frequent vivid hypnagogic hallucinations, while others rarely notice anything unusual during the transition to sleep. These differences appear to relate to creativity, openness to experience, and the natural timing of sleep-wake cycles. The therapeutic potential of hypnagogic states is being explored in various clinical contexts. Some forms of psychotherapy deliberately induce relaxed, threshold states of consciousness to facilitate access to unconscious material and promote creative problem-solving. The reduced self-censorship and increased associative freedom of hypnagogic consciousness can help people access insights and perspectives that are unavailable during normal waking awareness. Sleep disorders can disrupt normal hypnagogic experiences, sometimes creating distressing or intrusive phenomena. Sleep paralysis, which can occur during the transition between sleep and waking, often involves hypnagogic hallucinations that feel threatening or supernatural. Understanding the neurological basis of these experiences can help reduce the anxiety they often create. The relationship between hypnagogic experiences and creativity extends beyond individual problem-solving to artistic and literary creation. Many writers report receiving entire stories or poems during hypnagogic episodes. Visual artists often use hypnagogic imagery as source material for their work. Musicians might hear complete melodies or complex harmonies emerging from threshold consciousness. The modern digital environment can interfere with natural hypnagogic experiences. The blue light from screens suppresses melatonin production and maintains heightened alertness, making it difficult to access the relaxed, associative state that characterizes healthy hypnagogic consciousness. Creating technology-free transition periods before sleep can help restore access to this important state. Understanding the hypnagogic state can help you appreciate the remarkable flexibility of consciousness and the constructed nature of ordinary waking awareness. The clear boundaries between self and world, past and present, real and imagined, that seem so fundamental during waking consciousness, reveal themselves as convenient constructions that can be temporarily suspended without catastrophic consequences. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might notice the moment when your consciousness begins to shift into hypnagogic mode. Pay gentle attention to how thoughts become more fluid, how memories begin to surface and combine in unexpected ways, how the sense of time becomes more elastic and dreams-like. This is your mind revealing its creative associative nature, the same mental flexibility that allows you to solve problems, make artistic connections, and adapt to new situations. The hypnagogic state offers a daily reminder that consciousness is far more flexible and creative than it appears during normal waking awareness. In these threshold moments, you can glimpse the vast, interconnected landscape of memory and imagination that lies just beneath the surface of ordinary consciousness. Let yourself appreciate this remarkable capacity of your mind to transcend its usual boundaries, to float freely in the realm where memories combine and recombine, where time becomes fluid, and where new possibilities emerge from the creative dance of threshold awareness. Deep within your brain lies a remarkable class of neurons that blur the boundaries between self and other, between your experiences and those of the people around you. These mirror neurons fire not only when you perform an action, but also when you observe someone else performing the same action. They create a neural bridge between minds, allowing you to literally share experiences with others in ways that can shape your own memories and sense of identity. The discovery of mirror neurons happened by accident in the 1990 seconds, when Italian neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti and his team were studying motor neurons in macaque monkeys. They had implanted electrodes to record neural activity when the monkeys reached for objects. One day, a researcher reached for a peanut while the recording equipment was still running, and the scientists noticed something extraordinary. The same neurons that fired when the monkey grabbed food also fired when the monkey merely watched the human researcher grab food. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of how brains process social information. Mirror neurons don't just observe actions, they simulate them internally, creating a neural representation of what it would feel like to perform those actions yourself. When you watch someone pick up a coffee cup, your mirror neurons fire as if you were picking up the cup yourself, giving you an embodied understanding of their movement and intention. But the implications extend far beyond simple action understanding. Mirror neurons appear to play crucial roles in empathy, language learning, and cultural transmission. Most remarkably for our exploration of memory, they may be responsible for creating what researchers call vicarious memories. Memories of experiences that happen to others but feel as though they happen to you. Dr. Diana Tamir at Princeton University has conducted fascinating research on how social experiences shape memory formation. Her studies reveal that when you hear someone describe their experiences, your brain often processes those descriptions using the same neural networks involved in your own autobiographical memories. The boundaries between self and other become permeable at the neural level, allowing others' experiences to be integrated into your own memory systems. This process begins in early childhood, when mirror neuron systems are particularly active and plastic. Young children often struggle to distinguish between events they personally experienced and events they witnessed or heard about. A child might vividly remember a family story they've heard multiple times, incorporating details and emotions as if they had been personally present for events that occurred before they were born. The neuroscientist Vittorio Gallies has proposed that mirror neurons create what he calls embodied simulation, an automatic process by which observing others' actions, emotions, and sensations triggers similar neural patterns in your own brain. This simulation process is so powerful that it can create lasting memory traces that feel indistinguishable from personal experiences. Consider how this works with emotional experiences. When you watch someone express sadness, your mirror neuron systems automatically simulate their emotional state, activating similar patterns in your own limbic system. If this simulation is intense enough, it can create lasting memories that feel like personal emotional experiences. You might later recall feeling deeply moved by a particular moment, without clearly remembering whether you experienced that emotion directly or through empathetic connection with someone else. The phenomenon of emotional contagion illustrates how mirror neuron activity can create shared memory experiences in real time. When groups of people experience intense emotions together at concerts, sporting events, or during traumatic situations, their mirror neuron systems create synchronized neural activity that can lead to remarkably similar memories of the shared experience. Each person remembers not just their individual perspective, but something closer to a collective experience. Family stories provide another compelling example of how mirror neurons shape memory formation. Children growing up hearing repeated stories about family members often develop vivid, detailed memories of events they never witnessed. These borrowed memories can feel completely authentic and may be recalled with the same confidence and emotional intensity as genuine personal memories. The transgenerational transmission of trauma appears to involve mirror neuron mechanisms combined with epigenetic factors. Children of trauma survivors often develop anxiety responses and memory patterns related to experiences they never personally encountered. Recent research suggests that mirror neuron activity during early interactions with traumatized caregivers might create neural templates that predispose children to form trauma-related memories and responses. Dr. Rachel Yehuda's groundbreaking research on Holocaust survivors and their children revealed that traumatic experiences can be transmitted across generations through both psychological and biological mechanisms. Children of survivors often report having vivid, disturbing dreams or intrusive thoughts about concentration camps and other war experiences they never personally endured. Mirror neuron simulation of parental trauma responses may contribute to this phenomenon. The cultural transmission of knowledge and skills also relies heavily on mirror neuron mechanisms. When you learn to play a musical instrument by watching a teacher, your mirror neurons fire as if you were performing the movements yourself. This creates neural memories of complex motor sequences before you've actually performed them, dramatically accelerating the learning process. Language acquisition represents one of the most sophisticated examples of mirror neuron-mediated learning. Infants learning to speak don't just hear sounds, they watch facial movements, observe tongue positions, and mirror the entire embodied process of speech production. This creates rich, multimodal memories that support language development in ways that would be impossible through auditory input alone. The role of mirror neurons in memory formation becomes particularly apparent in therapeutic contexts. When clients describe traumatic experiences to therapists, the therapist's mirror neuron systems automatically simulate those experiences, sometimes creating secondary trauma symptoms that feel like personal memories. Experienced therapists learn to maintain professional boundaries while still accessing the empathetic understanding that mirror neuron activation provides. Social media and digital communication have created new contexts for mirror neuron activation and vicarious memory formation. When you read detailed personal accounts on social platforms, watch intimate video content, or engage with immersive virtual reality experiences, your mirror neuron systems respond as if you were directly experiencing those situations. This can lead to the formation of false memories or the incorporation of others' experiences into your own autobiographical narrative. The phenomenon of false news memories demonstrates how mirror neuron simulation can create memories of events that never happened. When people read vivid, detailed accounts of fictional events, especially those that trigger strong emotional responses, their mirror neuron systems can create neural memories that feel authentic. Later, these simulated experiences might be recalled as genuine memories, contributing to false beliefs about personal or historical events. Understanding mirror neurons also sheds light on the development of empathy and moral reasoning. Your ability to understand others' emotions and predict their behavior depends on your mirror neuron system's capacity to simulate their mental states. People with autism spectrum disorders often show differences in mirror neuron functioning, which may contribute to challenges with social understanding and empathy. The therapeutic applications of mirror neuron research are expanding rapidly. Mirror therapy, originally developed for phantom limb pain, uses mirror neuron activation to help stroke patients recover motor function. By watching reflections of their functioning limb performing movements, patients can activate motor memories and neural pathways that support rehabilitation. Mindfulness practices can help you become more aware of mirror neuron activation and its effects on your memory and emotional state. When you notice yourself automatically mirroring others' emotions or incorporating their experiences into your own mental narrative, you can choose whether to continue that process or maintain clearer boundaries between self and other. The implications of mirror neuron research for personal identity are profound. If your memories can be influenced by others' experiences through mirror neuron simulation, then your sense of self is more interconnected and socially constructed than you might realize. You are not just an isolated individual accumulating personal experiences. You are part of a social network where experiences, emotions, and memories flow between minds through neural mechanisms that evolution has refined over millions of years. This interconnectedness isn't a weakness or confusion in human psychology. It's a sophisticated adaptation that enables complex social cooperation, cultural learning, and emotional bonding. Your capacity to understand others, learn from their experiences, and feel connected to your community all depend on mirror neuron systems that blur the boundaries between individual minds. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might notice how your consciousness naturally attunes to the people around you. Even in solitude, you carry within your neural networks traces of countless social interactions, borrowed experiences that have shaped your understanding of yourself and the world. These vicarious memories aren't contaminations of your pure personal experience. They're essential components of human consciousness, evidence of the deep social nature of minds that evolved to live and learn together. Let yourself appreciate the remarkable capacity of your mirror neuron systems to create bridges between minds, to allow you to understand others from the inside, to learn from experiences you've never directly encountered. In the interconnected landscape of human consciousness, every memory is both personal and social. Every experience both individual and shared. Every mind both distinct and connected to the vast network of human understanding that spans cultures and generations. Thousands of people vividly remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1,980 seconds, complete with memories of news coverage, funeral proceedings, and his widow's speeches. Others clearly recall the children's book series being spelled the Berenstain Bears rather than the Berenstain Bears. Many are certain that the Monopoly Man wears a monocle, that Sinbad starred in a movie called Shazam in the 1,990 seconds, or that the phrase from Star Wars is, "Luke, I am your father," rather than, "No, I am your father." These confident, detailed memories of events that never happened or happened differently than remembered illustrate the Mandela effect, named after the South African leader who actually died in 2013, not imprisoned decades earlier. This phenomenon reveals something unsettling about the reliability of memory and something fascinating about how human minds can collectively construct false recollections that feel absolutely authentic. The Mandela effect demonstrates that false memories aren't just individual psychological quirks. They can emerge as shared cultural phenomena that affect thousands or even millions of people simultaneously. These collective false memories challenge our assumptions about the relationship between individual consciousness and social reality, revealing how personal memory systems can be influenced by cultural factors in ways that create remarkably consistent errors across large populations. Dr. Henry Roediger, one of the leading memory researchers studying this phenomenon, has identified several psychological mechanisms that contribute to collective false memory formation. Schema-driven errors occur when people remember events according to their expectations rather than their actual experiences. If you expect the Monopoly man to have a monocle because that fits your schema of wealthy, distinguished gentleman, you might remember him having one, even though he doesn't. Confabulation represents another pathway to collective false memories. When memory systems encounter gaps or ambiguities, they automatically fill in missing details using information that seems plausible and consistent. If multiple people are exposed to similar cultural information and expectations, their confabulation processes might generate remarkably similar false details. The internet has amplified and accelerated the Mandela effect by allowing people to discover and reinforce shared false memories. Before digital communication, an individual who misremembered a detail might gradually correct their memory through social interaction, or simply dismiss the discrepancy as personal error. Now, someone who misremembers can quickly find online communities of people who share the same false memory, creating validation and confidence that can make the false memory feel even more authentic. Dr. Celia Wills has studied how false memories spread through social networks, finding that confidence in false memories actually increases when people discover that others share the same false recollections. This social validation effect can make collective false memories remarkably resistant to correction, even when confronted with clear evidence that the remembered events didn't occur as recalled. The cognitive psychologist Lynn Hasher discovered that source confusion plays a major role in false memory formation. People often remember information accurately, but misattribute its source, leading to false memories about when, where, or how they learned something. In the case of the Mandela effect, people might accurately remember hearing about Nelson Mandela's imprisonment, but mistakenly recall also hearing about his death during that same period. Priming effects contribute to the formation of collective false memories by influencing how people encode and recall information. If cultural references consistently associate certain characteristics with particular figures, wealth with monocles, cartoon bears with certain spelling patterns, these associations can influence memory formation and retrieval in ways that create systematic errors. The psychology of suggestion reveals how collective false memories can emerge from exposure to misleading information, even when that information isn't explicitly presented as fact. If someone mentions the possibility that a detail might be different than commonly believed, other people might incorporate that suggestion into their own memory reconstruction processes, gradually building confidence in the false alternative. False memories also benefit from what psychologists call the generation effect, the tendency to remember information better when you generate it yourself, rather than simply receiving it passively. When people actively try to recall details about past events, their memory systems generate plausible information to fill gaps. If multiple people engage in this active recall process under similar circumstances, they might generate similar false details that then feel like authentic memories. The availability heuristic influences which false memories become widespread and persistent. Details that are easy to visualize, emotionally resonant, or consistent with existing cultural narratives are more likely to be incorporated into false memories and more likely to be shared across social networks. A monocle on the Monopoly man is easy to visualize and fits cultural stereotypes about wealthy characters, making it a sticky, false memory. Sleep and memory consolidation processes can contribute to false memory formation by integrating suggested information with authentic memory traces. During sleep, your brain doesn't just strengthen existing memories, it also fills in gaps and resolves inconsistencies. If false information has been suggested during waking hours, sleep consolidation might integrate that information into memory networks in ways that make it feel authentic upon later recall. The neuroscientist Daniel Schachter has identified several sins of memory that contribute to false recollection, including bias, suggestibility, and misattribution. These aren't flaws in the memory system, but adaptive features that usually serve important functions. The same mechanisms that allow your memory to generalize from experience, integrate new information with existing knowledge, and maintain narrative coherence can also create false memories under certain circumstances. Cultural factors significantly influence which false memories emerge and persist within particular communities. Shared cultural references, generational experiences, and collective narratives all provide raw material for false memory formation. The Mandela effect often involves details from popular culture because these shared cultural touchstones provide common reference points that multiple people can misremember in similar ways. The political implications of collective false memories are particularly concerning in an era of alternative facts and disputed historical narratives. Understanding how false memories form and spread can help explain how entire communities can develop sincere, confident beliefs in events that never occurred or occurred differently than remembered. Educational applications of false memory research reveal the importance of teaching critical thinking about memory and evidence. Students who understand the fallibility of memory and the mechanisms of false memory formation are better equipped to evaluate their own recollections and distinguish between authentic memories and constructed ones. The therapeutic implications are equally important. Many psychological disorders involve distorted or false memories that feel completely authentic to the people experiencing them. Understanding how false memories form can help therapists distinguish between authentic traumatic memories that require processing and false memories that might be inadvertently reinforced through therapeutic techniques. Legal systems have begun incorporating false memory research into their procedures for evaluating eyewitness testimony and recovered memories. The recognition that confident, detailed memories can be completely false has led to important reforms in how courts handle memory-based evidence. The philosophical implications of the Mandela effect challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between individual consciousness and objective reality. If thousands of people can confidently remember events that never happened, what does this say about the nature of memory, knowledge, and truth? How do we distinguish between authentic collective memories and collective false memories? Some researchers have proposed that collective false memories serve important social functions by creating shared cultural narratives that promote group cohesion and identity. Even if these shared memories aren't historically accurate, they might serve important psychological and social functions by providing common reference points for cultural understanding. The digital preservation of information creates new opportunities for both preventing and studying false memories. Unlike previous eras, where cultural memories were preserved primarily through oral tradition and personal recollection, digital archives can provide objective records that allow researchers to study how collective memories diverge from documented reality over time. Understanding the Mandela effect can help you develop a more sophisticated relationship with your own memories and those of others. Recognizing that confident, detailed memories can be false doesn't mean abandoning trust in memory altogether. Instead, it means developing appropriate humility about the certainty of recollection and the importance of external verification for important facts. As you settle into sleep tonight, you might reflect on how your individual memories are interwoven with collective cultural narratives in ways that you rarely notice consciously. Your personal recollections exist within a vast social context, where individual memory systems influence and are influenced by the shared cultural memories of your community. This interconnectedness isn't a source of confusion, it's evidence of the fundamentally social nature of human consciousness and the collaborative construction of meaning that makes culture and civilization possible. Let yourself appreciate the remarkable fact that your memory system is sophisticated enough to create vivid, detailed false memories that feel completely authentic. This capacity for creative reconstruction serves important adaptive functions most of the time, even when it occasionally leads you astray. In the gentle drift towards sleep, where memory and imagination naturally merge, you can glimpse the creative, constructive nature of all, remembering the ongoing process by which your mind weaves together fragments of experience, expectation, and cultural knowledge into the coherent narrative you call your life. As consciousness fades and your brainwaves slow into the rhythms of sleep, an extraordinary transformation begins to unfold within your neural networks. What appears from the outside to be a period of rest and inactivity is actually one of the most dynamic and important phases of memory processing. Sleep doesn't just restore your brain, it fundamentally reorganizes your memories, deciding what to keep, what to discard, and how to integrate new experiences with existing knowledge. The discovery that sleep plays an active role in memory processing revolutionized neuroscience and psychology. For centuries, sleep was viewed as a passive state, where the brain simply recharged like a battery. But modern research reveals that sleep is actually a highly organized process where specific brain oscillations coordinate complex memory operations that would be impossible during waking consciousness. Dr. György Busaki, one of the pioneering researchers in this field, discovered that during slow-wave sleep, your brain generates powerful electrical oscillations that sweep across the cortex, like waves on an ocean. These slow waves coordinate the replay of daily experiences at incredibly high speeds, compressing hours of real-time experience into minutes of accelerated neural activity. This process begins in the hippocampus, your brain's memory indexing system. During the day, the hippocampus rapidly encodes new experiences, creating temporary memory traces that link scattered pieces of information across different brain regions. At night, during slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus begins to replay these daily experiences, but not as exact reproductions of what happened. The replays are edited, compressed, and reorganized versions of daily events. A conversation that lasted 20 minutes during the day might be replayed in 20 seconds during sleep, with the replay focusing on the most salient or emotionally significant moments. These high-speed replays allow your brain to extract patterns and meanings that weren't apparent during the original experience. Dr. Matthew Wilson's groundbreaking research with rats running through mazes revealed the remarkable precision of this replay process. Electrodes, implanted in the animal's hippocampi, showed that the same sequences of place cells that fired as the rats navigated mazes during the day would fire again during sleep, but up to 20 times faster. The sleeping brain was literally practicing the day's navigational experiences at high speed. Human studies using advanced brain imaging techniques have confirmed that similar replay processes occur in human brains during sleep. When people learn new routes through virtual environments or master new skills during the day, their sleeping brains show reactivation of the same neural networks involved in the original learning, but with enhanced coordination and efficiency. The dialogue between hippocampus and neocortex during sleep reveals one of the most sophisticated aspects of memory consolidation. The hippocampus doesn't just replay experiences, it teaches them to the neocortex, gradually transferring important information from temporary hippocampal storage to more permanent cortical networks. This transfer process can take weeks or months to complete, which explains why some memories become more stable and detailed over time rather than simply fading. Sharp wave ripples represent some of the most fascinating phenomena in sleep neuroscience. These brief, high-frequency oscillations occur in the hippocampus during slow-wave sleep and appear to coordinate the transfer of specific memories to cortical storage sites. Each ripple lasts only about 100 milliseconds, but during that brief period, vast amounts of information can be processed and reorganized. Dr. Suzanne Diekelman's research has revealed that different stages of sleep serve different memory functions. Slow-wave sleep, which dominates the first half of the night, specializes in consolidating declarative memories, facts, events, and explicit knowledge that you can consciously recall. REM sleep, which becomes more prominent toward morning, appears to focus on procedural memories, emotional processing, and creative integration. The timing of these sleep stages creates a sophisticated memory processing pipeline. Early, slow-wave sleep stabilizes new factual memories and integrates them with existing knowledge networks. Later REM periods work on emotional memories, creative associations, and the kind of flexible thinking that supports problem-solving and innovation. Dreams represent the conscious tip of this vast, unconscious memory processing iceberg. While you experience dreams as strange narratives filled with impossible events and characters, neuroscience reveals that dreaming consciousness reflects the ongoing reorganization of memory networks. The bizarre quality of dreams may result from the brain's attempt to create coherent narratives from the fragments of memory being processed and integrated. Dr. Robert Stickgold's research has shown that dreams often incorporate elements from recent experiences, but not in the straightforward way you might expect. Dream content typically includes fragments from the previous day, but these fragments are recombined with older memories in ways that can create new insights and associations. The dreaming brain appears to be experimenting with different ways to organize and connect stored information. The emotional processing that occurs during REM sleep is particularly important for psychological health. Traumatic or emotionally intense experiences require special handling by the memory system, and REM sleep appears to provide a safe space where emotional memories can be processed and integrated without triggering the full physiological stress response that would occur during waking recall. Sleep spindles' brief bursts of brain activity that occur during light sleep serve as gatekeepers that determine which memories will be processed during deeper sleep stages. These spindles appear to select important memories for consolidation while protecting sleep from disruption by irrelevant information. People who generate more sleep spindles show better memory consolidation and are less likely to be awakened by external sounds. The molecular mechanisms of sleep-dependent memory consolidation involve complex cascades of protein synthesis and gene expression. During sleep, neurons activated during learning show enhanced production of proteins needed to strengthen synaptic connections. This protein synthesis is essential for converting temporary memory traces into stable, long-term memories. Individual differences in sleep architecture correlate with differences in memory consolidation abilities. Some people naturally spend more time in slow-wave sleep and show enhanced consolidation of factual memories, while others have more REM sleep and show advantages in creative and emotional memory processing. Age-related changes in sleep patterns may contribute to the memory difficulties that often accompany aging. The modern environment poses significant challenges to natural sleep-dependent memory processing. Artificial light, irregular schedules, caffeine consumption, and electronic device usage can all disrupt the delicate timing of sleep stages and interfere with memory consolidation. Sleep disorders like sleep apnea and insomnia can severely impair memory formation and retention. Targeted memory reactivation represents an exciting frontier in sleep research. Scientists have discovered that playing subtle cues during sleep sounds or scents that were present during learning can enhance the consolidation of specific memories. This technique might eventually be used therapeutically to strengthen important memories or weaken traumatic ones. The educational implications of sleep research are profound. Students who get adequate sleep after learning show dramatically better performance than those who stay awake to study more. The brain literally learns while you sleep, organizing and strengthening the information acquired during waking hours. Understanding sleep's memory functions can help you optimize your own learning and memory performance. Maintaining consistent sleep schedules, creating environments conducive to deep sleep, and avoiding activities that disrupt sleep architecture can all enhance your brain's natural memory consolidation processes. The therapeutic applications of sleep research are expanding rapidly. Sleep-based interventions are being developed for treating PTSD, depression, and various memory disorders. By understanding how sleep normally processes emotional and traumatic memories, researchers are developing ways to enhance therapeutic sleep and accelerate psychological healing. Napping research reveals that even brief periods of sleep can enhance memory consolidation. Strategic naps of 60 to 90 minutes can provide significant benefits for learning and memory, particularly when timed to include both slow-wave and REM sleep stages. The relationship between physical exercise and sleep-dependent memory consolidation shows that daytime activities can influence nighttime memory processing. Regular exercise enhances sleep quality and appears to promote more effective memory consolidation, possibly through effects on neurotrophic factors that support neural plasticity. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you can appreciate the remarkable transformation that's about to occur within your brain. The experiences of today, conversations, discoveries, challenges, and insights will be carefully reviewed, edited, and integrated into the vast library of your memories. Your sleeping brain will decide what deserves permanent storage, what connections to strengthen, and what patterns to extract from the day's experiences. This isn't passive storage, but active curation. Your sleeping mind is an artist, selecting the most meaningful elements from the raw material of daily experience and weaving them into the ongoing masterpiece of your personal history. Trust in this ancient process that has been refined over millions of years of evolution, knowing that your brain contains wisdom about memory and learning that operates far below the threshold of conscious awareness. Let yourself drift into sleep with gratitude for this nightly gift of memory consolidation, where the chaos of daily experience is transformed into the organized knowledge that will guide tomorrow's thoughts and actions. In sleep's memory theater, today becomes part of forever, carefully preserved and artfully integrated into the ever-evolving story of who you are. In the quantum realm of atomic particles, reality exists in a state of superposition until the moment of observation collapses the wave function into a single definite state. This strange principle of quantum mechanics, where possibilities exist simultaneously until measurement forces reality to choose, may offer profound insights into how your brain retrieves memories. The act of remembering, like quantum measurement, appears to collapse a superposition of potential memories into a single, experienced recollection. When you try to remember what you had for lunch yesterday, you don't simply access a filed-away record like retrieving a document from a folder. Instead, your brain enters a complex, quantum-like state where multiple potential memories exist simultaneously. The smell of coffee might suggest breakfast, while the memory of a colleague's voice might point toward a lunch meeting. Various neural networks activate competing possibilities until the act of conscious recall collapses these competing potentials into a single, coherent memory. Dr. Henry Stapp, a quantum physicist who has explored the parallels between quantum mechanics and consciousness, proposes that the brain operates according to quantum principles at the level of synaptic transmission. In this view, each synaptic event exists in superposition until neural integration forces a collapse into specific patterns of activation. Memory retrieval would then involve quantum-like processes where multiple potential memories exist simultaneously until the act of remembering selects one. The uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics states that you cannot simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect precision. Similarly, memory retrieval appears to involve fundamental trade-offs between different aspects of recollection. You might remember the emotional tone of an experience very clearly, while the specific details remain fuzzy, or recall precise facts while losing touch with the feelings associated with them. Quantum entanglement, the phenomenon where particles become correlated in ways that persist across vast distances, finds an intriguing parallel in how memories become associated within neural networks. When you remember one element of a past experience, related memories often become activated simultaneously, as if they were entangled at the quantum level of neural processing. Consider how this works when you hear a song from your high school years. The musical memory doesn't just activate in isolation, it simultaneously triggers memories of friends, places, emotions, and events from that period. These memories seem entangled in ways that transcend normal associational learning, responding to each other instantaneously across the neural networks where they're stored. The complementarity principle in quantum mechanics states that objects have pairs of properties that cannot be measured simultaneously. Light, for example, behaves as both a wave and a particle, but you can only observe one aspect at a time. Memory retrieval shows similar complementarity. You can access memories as either episodic experiences, remembering specific events, or semantic knowledge, knowing facts. But accessing one mode tends to inhibit the other. When you try to remember a childhood birthday party, you might initially access it as semantic knowledge. You know you had a party, remember some of the guests, and recall that you received certain gifts. But if you then try to re-experience the event episodically to actually feel like you're back at that party, the factual knowledge often fades as experiential memory takes precedence. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that the act of measurement changes the system being measured. Similarly, the act of remembering changes the memory being recalled. Each time you access a memory, you alter its neural representation, updating it with current context and potentially modifying details. The memory you retrieve is never exactly the same as the memory you stored. It's been changed by the very act of remembering. Dr. Karim Nader's research on memory reconsolidation reveals the biological basis of this observer effect in memory systems. When you recall a memory, it becomes neurochemically labile, unstable, and subject to modification. During this brief window, the memory can be updated, corrupted, or enhanced before being stored again. The act of observation literally changes the observed memory. Quantum superposition suggests that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observation forces them into a definite state. Your memory system appears to operate similarly during the search and retrieval process. When you try to remember someone's name, multiple possibilities might be simultaneously active in your neural networks until focused attention collapses the superposition into a single retrieved name. This explains why partial cues can be so effective for memory retrieval. A fragment of information, the first letter of a name, a contextual detail, or an associated emotion can activate a superposition of related memories. The brain then uses additional context and processing to collapse this superposition into the specific memory being sought. The non-locality principle in quantum mechanics shows that entangled particles can influence each other instantaneously, regardless of the distance between them. Memory networks seem to exhibit similar non-local connections, where activating one memory can immediately influence seemingly unrelated memories stored in distant brain regions. This non-locality helps explain the phenomenon of spreading activation in memory retrieval. When you think about dogs, related concepts like pets, parks, walking, and childhood automatically become more accessible, even though they're stored in different neural networks. The connections between memories appear to operate faster than neural transmission speeds would predict, suggesting quantum-like non-local correlations. Wave function collapse in quantum mechanics is irreversible. Once a measurement is made, you cannot return to the previous superposition state. Memory retrieval shows similar irreversibility. Once you've remembered something in a particular way, that specific retrieval experience becomes part of the memory trace, making it difficult to access the memory in exactly the same way again. This irreversibility helps explain why repeated recall of a memory tends to make it more stable, but also more stereotyped. Each act of retrieval collapses the quantum superposition of possible memories into a specific version, which then influences future retrievals. Over time, a memory becomes increasingly dominated by the most frequently retrieved version. The measurement problem in quantum mechanics asks how and when wave function collapse occurs. What constitutes a measurement that forces quantum superposition to resolve into classical reality? Memory research faces a similar puzzle. What neurobiological processes determine when the superposition of potential memories collapses into conscious recollection? Recent research suggests that gamma wave oscillations in the brain might serve as the neural equivalent of quantum measurement. These high-frequency brainwaves appear to coordinate distributed neural activity and may be responsible for binding together the various elements of a memory into a coherent, conscious experience. Quantum decoherence, the process by which quantum systems lose their quantum properties through interaction with the environment, offers insights into how memories become fixed and classical rather than fluid and quantum-like. As memories age and are repeatedly accessed, they may lose their quantum coherence and become more stable, classical representations. This decoherence process might explain why recent memories feel more flexible and subject to revision, while older memories feel more fixed and unchangeable. Fresh memories might retain quantum-like properties that allow for easy modification, while well-established memories have undergone decoherence and become classical, stable representations. The many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that all possible alternate histories and futures exist simultaneously in parallel universes. While we can't verify this interpretation for physical reality, it offers an interesting metaphor for memory systems, where all possible versions of events might exist simultaneously in neural networks until retrieval selects one version for conscious experience. This perspective suggests that your brain might store multiple versions of the same event simultaneously, different interpretations, emotional colorings, and factual details that compete during retrieval. The version you remember depends on the neural equivalent of which universe you observe. Which set of retrieval cues and contexts determines the outcome of the memory search process. Understanding the quantum-like nature of memory retrieval has practical implications for learning and recall strategies. Techniques like spaced repetition work partly because they allow memories to exist in superposition between retrieval sessions, preventing premature collapse into overly rigid representations. Varying the context and cues used for retrieval can help maintain the quantum flexibility that supports creative and adaptive memory use. The implications extend to therapeutic applications as well. Traumatic memories that have collapsed into rigid, distressing patterns might benefit from interventions that restore quantum-like flexibility, allowing new associations and interpretations to compete with established trauma responses. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might notice how the quantum-like properties of memory become more apparent in the drowsy state between waking and sleeping. Memories begin to exist in superposition, mixing and merging in ways that would be impossible during focused, waking consciousness. Past and present blur together, and contradictory memories coexist without triggering the logical corrections that would occur during normal waking awareness. This hypnagogic state offers a glimpse into the quantum nature of all memory retrieval and the remarkable process by which your brain navigates superpositions of possibility to construct the specific memories that emerge into consciousness. In the gentle collapse of quantum possibility into classical recollection, your mind performs a daily miracle of creation, bringing order from chaos, specificity from potential, and coherent narrative from the infinite quantum library of possible memories. If you're over 40 and try to recall significant memories from throughout your life, you'll likely notice something curious. A disproportionate number of your most vivid, meaningful memories cluster around the ages of 15 to 30. This isn't just coincidence or nostalgia, it's a robust psychological phenomenon called the reminiscence bump, and it reveals something profound about how your brain constructs the story of your life. Researchers have documented this pattern across cultures, generations, and different methods of memory testing. Whether people are asked to recall important personal events, significant historical moments they witnessed, or even their favorite music, the same temporal pattern emerges. The adolescent and early adult years seem to generate memories that glow more brightly and persist more stubbornly than experiences from other life periods. Dr. David Rubin, one of the pioneering researchers in this field, first noticed the reminiscence bump while studying autobiographical memory across the lifespan. When he asked older adults to recall memories from different decades of their lives, he expected to find a steady decline from recent to distant memories. Instead, he discovered this surprising peak during the teens and 20s, followed by the expected decline for earlier childhood memories. This pattern holds up across different types of memories and different ways of measuring them. When people are asked about their most important life events, their favorite books and movies, the music that means the most to them, or even their strongest emotional memories, the reminiscence bump appears consistently. Something special happens to memory formation during those crucial developmental years. The neurobiological explanation for the reminiscence bump involves the unique brain development occurring during adolescence and early adulthood. This period represents a sweet spot where neural plasticity remains high while cognitive abilities reach their peak. Your brain during these years is still flexible enough to form rich, detailed memories, while being sophisticated enough to understand and integrate complex experiences. Dr. Lynn Nadel's research on hippocampal development reveals that memory formation systems don't reach full maturity until the mid-20s. During the reminiscence bump period, your hippocampus and associated memory structures are operating at peak efficiency, creating the optimal conditions for forming vivid, lasting memories. This neurobiological window helps explain why memories from this period feel more detailed and emotionally resonant than those from other life stages. The identity formation process that occurs during adolescence and early adulthood also contributes to the reminiscence bump. These are the years when you're actively constructing your adult identity, making crucial decisions about career, relationships, and values. Experiences during this period feel especially significant because they're directly related to the fundamental question, "Who am I?" that dominates this developmental stage. Psychologist Jeffrey Arnett has identified this period as emerging adulthood, a distinct developmental phase characterized by identity exploration, instability, self-focus, feeling in between, and a sense of possibilities. The heightened significance of experiences during this phase creates stronger memory encoding and more frequent rehearsal, contributing to the reminiscence bump pattern. The novelty factor during the reminiscence bump years cannot be overstated. Almost everything you experience during adolescence and early adulthood represents a first romantic relationships, first jobs, first experiences of independence, first encounters with adult responsibilities. Novel experiences create more distinctive memory traces because they require more neural resources to process and understand. Right now, as you read these words, you're experiencing what feels like a smooth, continuous flow of present moments. One thought follows another in logical sequence, each moment seeming to emerge naturally from the previous one. But this experience of sequential time, the sense that consciousness unfolds in an orderly progression from past through present to future, may be one of the most sophisticated illusions your brain creates. Neuroscience reveals that consciousness doesn't actually unfold in real-time sequence. Instead, your brain processes information in parallel across multiple networks, then retrospectively creates the illusion of sequential flow. What you experience as now is actually a carefully constructed narrative that your brain assembles after the fact, imposing temporal order on neural events that occurred simultaneously, or even in reverse chronological order. The specious present, the psychological present moment, lasts approximately 2 to 3 seconds, much longer than any single instant of neural processing. During this temporal window, your brain integrates information from multiple sensory systems, emotional evaluations, and memory networks to create what feels like a unified present moment experience. But this integration happens through complex neural orchestration that bears little resemblance to the smooth temporal flow you consciously experience. Dr. Benjamin Libet's famous experiments in the 1980 seconds revealed that conscious awareness of decisions occurs several hundred milliseconds after the brain activity that initiates those decisions. Participants were asked to move their finger at a time of their choosing, while brain activity was monitored. The readiness potential brain activity associated with movement preparation began 350 milliseconds before participants reported being aware of their intention to move. This finding suggests that consciousness doesn't cause actions in real time, but rather creates narratives about actions after they've already been initiated by unconscious neural processes. Your sense of deciding and then acting may actually reflect your brain's post hoc storytelling about neural events that have already occurred. The binding problem in neuroscience asks how the brain creates unified, conscious experiences from the distributed processing of different neural networks. Visual information about color, motion, and form are processed in separate brain regions with different timing characteristics. Yet you experience a single, integrated visual scene rather than separate streams of color, motion, and form information. The solution appears to involve temporal binding neural oscillations that synchronize activity across different brain regions to create momentary snapshots of unified experience. Gamma waves, oscillating at 30 to 100 Hz, seem to coordinate these binding processes, creating brief windows where distributed neural activity coalesces into coherent, conscious experiences. But even this binding process doesn't occur in real time. Your brain constantly samples and resamples sensory information, creating discrete perceptual moments rather than continuous awareness. The smooth flow of consciousness emerges from the brain's remarkable ability to stitch these discrete moments together into what feels like seamless experience. The phenomenon of chronostasis, the stopped clock illusion, reveals how your brain actively constructs temporal experience. When you quickly shift your gaze to a clock, the second hand seems to freeze for a moment before resuming normal motion. This occurs because your brain backfills the brief period of saccadic blindness, when vision is suppressed during eye movements, with the first stable image you see after the movement. This backfilling process shows that your brain routinely edits temporal experience to maintain the illusion of continuous awareness. Visual information that arrives after an eye movement is retroactively assigned to moments before the movement, creating the illusion that you were seeing continuously when your vision was actually suppressed. Dreams provide perhaps the most dramatic evidence that consciousness can create elaborate temporal sequences without real-time neural processing. During REM sleep, you can experience dreams that seem to unfold over hours or days, complete with complex narratives and character development. Yet these dreams typically occur during brief periods of neural activity, lasting minutes or even seconds. The dreaming brain demonstrates its remarkable capacity to generate temporal experience without being constrained by clock time. Characters in dreams can age, seasons can change, and elaborate plots can develop all within the compressed neural activity of REM episodes. This reveals that the feeling of temporal duration is a construction of consciousness rather than a reflection of actual time passage. Dr. Ernst Puppel's research on temporal processing identified several distinct neural mechanisms that contribute to time perception. Automatic timing systems track durations up to 2 to 3 seconds, while conscious timing systems handle longer intervals. These different systems can operate independently, sometimes creating temporal illusions where subjective time and objective time diverge dramatically. The McGurk effect demonstrates how your brain integrates information across different timescales to create unified perceptual experiences. When visual information about lip movements is paired with different auditory information, people hear sounds that match the visual information rather than the actual audio. This cross-modal binding requires precise temporal coordination between visual and auditory processing streams. But research reveals that this coordination isn't happening in real time. Your brain allows for significant temporal windows, up to several hundred milliseconds, where visual and auditory information can be bound together. Information that arrives at slightly different times can be treated as simultaneous, revealing that simultaneity itself is a construction rather than a direct reflection of timing. The attentional blink phenomenon shows how consciousness samples experience in discrete chunks rather than continuously. When people are asked to identify two targets in a rapid stream of visual stimuli, they often miss the second target if it appears 200 to 500 milliseconds after the first. This suggests that consciousness operates in discrete temporal windows rather than as a continuous stream. Forward and backward masking and vision reveal that the brain routinely reorders temporal experience to maintain perceptual coherence. A brief visual stimulus can be masked by a subsequent stimulus that prevents conscious awareness of the first stimulus. Even more remarkably, a stimulus can be masked by a subsequent stimulus that arrives up to 100 milliseconds later, suggesting that consciousness waits to see what comes next before deciding what was experienced. The cutaneous rabbit illusion demonstrates similar temporal reordering in touch perception. When brief touches are applied in sequence to different points on the arm, people often feel the touches as if they occurred at intermediate locations. The brain appears to retrospectively redistribute the spatial locations of touches based on the complete temporal sequence. These findings suggest that consciousness doesn't experience events as they occur, but rather constructs temporal narratives that make sense of distributed neural processing. Your sense of living in an unfolding present moment may actually reflect your brain's ongoing effort to create coherent stories from neural events that occur across different timescales and processing streams. The implications extend to memory formation and retrieval. If consciousness creates temporal sequences retrospectively, then memories of temporal order may be particularly susceptible to reconstruction and error. The feeling that you remember events in the order they occurred may reflect your brain's post hoc organization of memory fragments, rather than accurate preservation of original temporal sequence. Meditation and contemplative practices often reveal the constructed nature of sequential time by allowing practitioners to notice the gaps and discontinuities in normal consciousness. Advanced meditators report experiencing states where the usual sense of temporal flow breaks down, revealing the discrete, constructed nature of ordinary temporal experience. Psychedelic experiences can also disrupt normal temporal construction, creating states where past, present, and future become fluid or even meaningless. These altered states may reveal the brain's normal temporal construction mechanisms by temporarily disabling them, allowing consciousness to experience reality without its usual temporal organization. The therapeutic implications of understanding temporal construction include treatments for PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. If consciousness retrospectively constructs temporal experience, then therapeutic interventions might be able to help people reconstruct traumatic memories in ways that reduce their emotional impact and integrate them more effectively with other memories. Understanding the false memory of sequential time can also inform approaches to learning and skill development. If consciousness doesn't unfold in real time, then the timing of attention, practice, and feedback might be more flexible than traditionally assumed. Learning interventions might be designed to work with the brain's natural temporal construction processes rather than assuming that experience unfolds in clock time. The digital age has created new challenges for temporal construction as screens and devices fragment attention across multiple simultaneous information streams. Understanding how the brain naturally constructs temporal experience might inform better designs for digital interfaces that work with, rather than against, natural neural timing mechanisms. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you might notice how the transition from waking to sleeping reveals the constructed nature of temporal experience. In the hypnagogic state, the careful temporal organization of waking consciousness begins to dissolve, allowing you to glimpse the more fluid, non-sequential processing that underlies all mental activity. Dreams will soon demonstrate your brain's remarkable capacity to create elaborate temporal narratives without the constraints of clock time. In the compressed neural activity of REM sleep, you might experience dreams that feel like they span days or years, revealing that the sense of temporal duration is entirely a construction of consciousness. Let yourself appreciate the remarkable sophistication of the neural mechanisms that normally create your sense of living in sequential time. This isn't a limitation or illusion to be overcome, but rather an elegant solution to the complex problem of creating coherent experience from the massively parallel processing of the human brain. In the gentle dissolution of temporal boundaries that accompanies sleep, you can glimpse the timeless awareness that underlies all constructed experience of time. In the ordinary flow of life, memories serve as gentle bridges between past and present, allowing you to learn from experience while moving forward through time. But trauma violates these normal memory processes, creating experiences so overwhelming that they shatter the usual relationship between past and present. Traumatic memories don't just revisit you, they can transport you entirely, collapsing the boundaries between then and now until past horror feels like present reality. Unlike normal memories that fade and transform over time, traumatic memories often retain their visceral intensity for years or even decades after the original events. They arrive as flashbacks that feel more like time travel than remembering, complete with the sights, sounds, smells, and bodily sensations of the original trauma. In these moments, the sophisticated temporal construction mechanisms that normally organize consciousness break down, trapping survivors in endless loops where the past refuses to become past. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the pioneering researchers in trauma treatment, discovered that traumatic memories are stored and retrieved differently than normal memories. During overwhelming experiences, the brain's usual memory processing systems, particularly the hippocampus, which normally creates coherent, time-stamped memories, can become temporarily disabled by stress hormones and extreme arousal. When the hippocampus goes offline during trauma, memories are encoded by more primitive brain systems that prioritize immediate survival over coherent narrative. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, creates vivid, sensory, and emotional memories, while the brainstem encodes the physical sensations and automatic responses that helped you survive. But without hippocampal involvement, these memory fragments lack the temporal and contextual information that would allow them to be experienced as past events. This creates what researchers call timeless traumatic memories, memory fragments that exist outside the normal flow of biographical time. When triggered, these memories don't feel like recollections of past events, but like present moment experiences. The survivor isn't remembering the trauma, they're reliving it, complete with the same physiological responses, emotional states, and sensory experiences that occurred during the original event. The concept of complex PTSD recognizes that repeated or prolonged trauma creates even more sophisticated disruptions of temporal experience. Survivors of childhood abuse, combat veterans with multiple deployments, or victims of long-term captivity often develop layered trauma responses, where multiple traumatic memories become interwoven and condensed. Past and present don't just collapse, they become hopelessly tangled in ways that can make normal, temporal experience nearly impossible. Dr. Judith Herman's groundbreaking work revealed that complex trauma often creates what she calls temporal dysregulation, a condition where survivors lose their normal sense of time and chronology. They might experience entire years as if they lasted only months, or single traumatic events as if they stretched across decades. The normal landmarks that organize biographical time, birthdays, holidays, seasonal changes, lose their meaning when consciousness is organized around traumatic rather than developmental milestones. The body keeps the score of traumatic experience in ways that transcend cognitive memory. Dr. Peter Levine's research on somatic trauma responses shows that traumatic memories are often stored primarily in the nervous system and musculature rather than in explicit memory systems. These body memories can be triggered by physical sensations, postures, or movements that resemble those present during the original trauma. Somatic flashbacks can occur without any conscious memory of trauma, leaving survivors feeling confused and overwhelmed by physical sensations and emotional states that seem to come from nowhere. A particular smell, body position, or even weather condition can trigger a full trauma response without the person having any conscious recollection of why their body is reacting so intensely. Dissociation represents another way that trauma disrupts normal temporal experience. When overwhelming events exceed the nervous system's capacity to integrate them into normal consciousness, the mind can split off traumatic experiences, creating what feel like separate selves or separate timelines. Dissociative survivors often describe feeling like they're living in multiple time zones simultaneously, part of them trapped in the past trauma, while another part tries to function in the present. The freeze response during trauma can create particularly disruptive temporal effects. When fight or flight responses are impossible, the nervous system may invoke a freeze state characterized by immobility, numbness, and altered time perception. Survivors often describe these freeze states as lasting forever or existing outside of time entirely. The memory of being frozen can later be triggered, recreating the same timeless, immobilized state years after the original trauma. Sleep disturbances in trauma survivors reveal how traumatic memories violate normal, sleep-dependent memory processing. Instead of being consolidated and integrated during sleep, traumatic memories often intrude into dreams as nightmares that feel indistinguishable from waking flashbacks. REM sleep, which normally processes emotional memories and integrates them with existing knowledge, becomes a time when trauma memories assault consciousness rather than being peacefully resolved. The phenomenon of anniversary reactions shows how traumatic memories can hijack normal temporal experience. Many trauma survivors find themselves experiencing unexplained anxiety, depression, or physical symptoms during certain times of year, often without conscious awareness that these periods correspond to anniversaries of traumatic events. The body and unconscious mind track traumatic time, even when conscious memory has forgotten. Hypervigilance, the constant scanning for potential threats that characterizes many trauma responses, also disrupts normal time perception. When consciousness is perpetually focused on potential future dangers, the present moment becomes compressed and anxious. Hypervigilant survivors often report feeling like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, unable to relax into normal, present moment experience. The development of effective trauma treatments has required understanding how to help survivors break free from traumatic time loops and restore normal temporal experience. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, appears to work partly by helping the brain reprocess traumatic memories during bilateral stimulation that mimics the eye movements of REM sleep. Somatic therapies focus on helping survivors reconnect with their bodies in ways that don't trigger traumatic memories. By gradually building tolerance for physical sensations and movements, these approaches help restore the normal integration of body and mind that trauma has disrupted. Neurofeedback treatments use real-time displays of brain activity to help survivors learn to regulate their nervous systems and restore normal brainwave patterns. These approaches recognize that trauma often involves dysregulation of the brain's basic oscillatory rhythms that support normal consciousness and memory processing. The concept of post-traumatic growth recognizes that successfully integrating traumatic experiences can sometimes lead to enhanced resilience, deeper relationships, and expanded meaning-making capacities. This growth process often involves learning to hold traumatic memories within a larger temporal context that includes both past suffering and present resources. Narrative therapy approaches help survivors construct coherent stories about their traumatic experiences that locate those experiences firmly in the past while extracting meaningful lessons for the present. This process of meaning-making can help transform timeless traumatic memories into normal biographical memories that feel like past events rather than ongoing present realities. The social dimension of trauma recovery involves restoration of normal social relationships that can provide external temporal anchors. Trauma often shatters trust in other people and in the predictability of social reality. Healing relationships help survivors rediscover that the present moment can be safe and that the future might hold possibilities other than repetitions of past trauma. Community-based trauma treatment recognizes that individual healing often requires broader social healing, particularly for collective traumas like war, genocide, or natural disasters. These approaches understand that traumatic time loops can affect entire communities, and that recovery often requires collective rituals and practices that help restore normal temporal experience for groups of people. The intergenerational transmission of trauma shows how traumatic time loops can extend across generations. Children of trauma survivors often inherit disrupted relationships with time and memory, even when they haven't directly experienced trauma themselves. Healing approaches increasingly recognize the need to address these intergenerational patterns to prevent trauma from creating endless cycles across family systems. Modern neuroscience has identified specific brain networks that become dysregulated in trauma survivors. The default mode network, which normally supports autobiographical memory and future planning, often shows disrupted connectivity in PTSD. Treatments that help restore normal default mode network functioning can help survivors regain their sense of existing in normal biographical time. Understanding trauma's effects on temporal experience has implications for how we structure support for survivors. Traditional therapy models that focus exclusively on talking about traumatic experiences may inadvertently reactivate traumatic time loops. Effective treatment often requires addressing the somatic and neurobiological aspects of trauma before attempting to process traumatic experiences cognitively. The recognition that trauma violates normal memory and temporal processing has led to important changes in legal systems' approaches to trauma survivors. Courts increasingly recognize that trauma survivors may have difficulty providing linear, chronological accounts of their experiences, not because they're being deceptive, but because trauma itself disrupts normal memory formation and retrieval. Educational systems are also beginning to recognize how childhood trauma affects learning and development. Students who are trapped in traumatic time loops may have difficulty concentrating on present-moment learning tasks because their attention is hijacked by past traumatic experiences or hypervigilant scanning for future threats. As you settle into sleep tonight, you might reflect on the remarkable resilience of human consciousness and its capacity to heal even from the most devastating temporal disruptions. Trauma represents an extreme test of the brain's ability to maintain coherent experience across time, and the existence of effective treatments demonstrates the remarkable plasticity and adaptability of human neural systems. If you carry your own traumatic memories, remember that their intense vividness doesn't mean they're happening now. It means your nervous system is working to protect you, using ancient survival mechanisms that sometimes create more problems than they solve. The very intensity of traumatic memories reflects your brain's commitment to keeping you safe, even when that commitment creates suffering. In the safe space of approaching sleep, past and present can begin to sort themselves into their proper temporal locations. The hypervigilance that trauma creates can gradually relax as your nervous system recognizes that this moment, this bed, this breath is safe. Let yourself appreciate how even traumatic time loops eventually yield to the healing power of present moment awareness, where past suffering can be held with compassion while future healing remains genuinely possible. Riding a bicycle, tying your shoes, playing a musical instrument, typing on a keyboard. These complex motor skills represent a different kind of memory altogether, one that operates below the threshold of consciousness and persists with remarkable tenacity throughout your lifetime. Procedural memory, the neural system that stores skilled movements and automatic behaviors, follows its own rules and reveals something profound about the multiple memory systems operating within your brain. Unlike the episodic memories we've explored, those conscious recollections of specific events and experiences, procedural memories exist in the realm of unconscious competence. You don't remember learning to walk, you simply walk. You don't consciously recall the thousands of hours of practice that taught your fingers to find the right keys when typing. Your hands simply know where to go. This distinction became dramatically clear through the case of Henry Molaison, known in neuroscience literature as HM, whose hippocampus was surgically removed to treat severe epilepsy. The surgery left him unable to form new episodic memories. He couldn't remember meeting his doctors day after day or recall conversations that had happened just minutes earlier. Yet remarkably, HM could still learn new motor skills. Dr. Brenda Milner demonstrated this by teaching HM to perform a mirror drawing task where he had to trace a star while looking only at its reflection in a mirror. Day after day, HM's performance improved, even though he had no conscious memory of ever having done the task before. His procedural memory system was learning and retaining information that his damaged episodic memory system couldn't access. This dissociation reveals that your brain operates multiple, largely independent memory systems. Procedural memory primarily involves the basal ganglia, cerebellum, and motor cortex brain regions that specialize in movement control and habit formation. These ancient neural structures can acquire and retain complex behavioral patterns without any involvement from the hippocampus or conscious awareness. The development of procedural memories follows a distinctive pattern that psychologists call the progression from conscious incompetence through conscious competence to unconscious competence. When you first learn to drive a car, Every action requires conscious attention, checking mirrors, coordinating the clutch and gas pedal, remembering to signal. This conscious incompetent stage is mentally exhausting because it demands constant, focused attention. With practice, you develop conscious competence. You can successfully perform the skill, but still need to think about what you're doing. You can drive safely, but you're aware of making deliberate decisions about when to brake, when to turn, how to respond to traffic situations. Your conscious mind remains actively involved in controlling your movements. But eventually, with sufficient repetition, the skill becomes unconscious competence. Your procedural memory system takes over, allowing you to drive while simultaneously conducting complex conversations, listening to podcasts, or thinking about completely unrelated topics. The basal ganglia have learned the movement patterns so thoroughly that conscious oversight becomes unnecessary. This progression explains why procedural memories feel so different from other types of memories. They don't exist as things you remember, but as things you can do. The knowledge is embedded in your neural circuits as patterns of connectivity between motor neurons, not as symbolic representations that can be consciously accessed and verbalized. The cerebellum plays a crucial role in procedural memory formation, particularly for tasks requiring precise timing and coordination. This brain region, which contains more neurons than the rest of the brain combined, specializes in learning and storing the detailed motor programs that underlie skilled movement. Damage to the cerebellum can severely impair motor learning while leaving other memory systems intact. Recent research has revealed that procedural memories extend far beyond simple motor skills to include complex cognitive and social behaviors. The way you navigate social conversations, your habitual patterns of thinking and problem solving, even your automatic emotional responses to certain situations, all of these can become proceduralized through repetition and practice. Dr. Anne Grabiel's research on habit formation shows how behaviors that initially require conscious control can become automated through repetition. The neural circuits involved in habit formation create behavioral chunks, automatic sequences of actions that can be triggered by environmental cues without conscious decision-making. These habits operate through the same procedural memory systems that control motor skills. The persistence of procedural memories helps explain why certain skills seem to be like riding a bicycle once learned. They're never truly forgotten. Even after decades of disuse, the neural patterns underlying procedural memories often remain accessible. The basal ganglia circuits that store these memories appear to be particularly resistant to forgetting, maintaining their connectivity long after episodic memories of learning have faded. This persistence can sometimes work against you when old procedural memories conflict with new learning. If you learn to type on a QWERTY keyboard and then try to switch to a different layout, your old procedural memories will interfere with acquiring the new patterns. The automatic movements stored in your basal ganglia will keep trying to assert themselves, making relearning more difficult than original learning. Language provides a fascinating example of procedural memory in cognitive domains. Your ability to construct grammatically correct sentences in your native language relies heavily on procedural memory systems that operate below conscious awareness. You don't consciously remember grammar rules when speaking. Instead, your brain has proceduralized the patterns of your language through years of exposure and practice. This explains why adult language learning is so challenging compared to childhood acquisition. Children learn language primarily through procedural memory systems that readily absorb new patterns. Adults, whose procedural systems are already committed to their native language patterns, they must often rely more heavily on explicit learning strategies that are less efficient for acquiring the automatic fluency that characterizes native speakers. Cultural transmission through procedural memory represents one of the most important ways that human societies preserve and pass on knowledge. Traditional crafts, cooking techniques, musical traditions, and social customs are often transmitted not through explicit instruction, but through procedural learning, watching, imitating, and gradually internalizing complex behavioral patterns. This type of cultural learning often involves what anthropologists call embodied knowledge, skills and understandings that exist in the body and hands rather than in verbal or symbolic form. A master craftsperson may be unable to fully explain their techniques in words because much of their expertise exists as procedural knowledge that operates below the threshold of consciousness. The emotional dimensions of procedural memory help explain why certain activities can trigger powerful feelings and associations, even when you don't consciously remember learning them. Your body may remember the feeling of being comforted through specific movements or postures, creating automatic responses to physical situations that seem to come from nowhere. This somatic dimension of procedural memory is particularly important in trauma recovery. Traumatic experiences often become encoded in procedural memory as automatic defensive responses, patterns of muscle tension, breathing, and movement that helped ensure survival during dangerous situations. These somatic memories can persist long after conscious memories of trauma have been processed or forgotten. Dance and movement therapies work partly by accessing and modifying these embodied procedural memories. Through careful attention to movement patterns and physical responses, people can gradually change automatic behavioral patterns that no longer serve them, replacing destructive procedural memories with more adaptive ones. The relationship between procedural memory and creativity reveals another important dimension of this memory system. Many creative skills, playing musical instruments, drawing, writing, involve developing procedural memories that free conscious attention to focus on expression and meaning rather than technical execution. Master musicians don't think about finger positions, they think about musical ideas, allowing their procedural memories to handle the technical details. This explains why creativity often emerges from the intersection of highly developed technical skills and conscious creative intention. The procedural memory system provides the automatic foundation that allows conscious creativity to flourish without being constrained by technical limitations. Modern technology is creating new challenges for procedural memory development. Digital interfaces often change more rapidly than the time required to develop robust procedural memories, forcing users to constantly relearn basic interaction patterns. This may be contributing to the feeling that technology is becoming increasingly difficult to master, despite designers' intentions to make it more user-friendly. The therapeutic applications of procedural memory research are expanding rapidly. Physical therapy increasingly recognizes the importance of helping patients re-establish automatic movement patterns rather than simply conscious motor control. Rehabilitation programs focus on repetitive practice that allows new procedural memories to develop and compensate for damaged neural circuits. Meditation and contemplative practices often involve training procedural memory systems to maintain specific attentional and postural patterns. Advanced practitioners develop what could be called procedural mindfulness, automatic patterns of awareness and attention that operate without conscious effort. This allows deeper states of meditation to emerge spontaneously once the basic procedural foundation has been established. Understanding procedural memory can help you approach skill development more effectively in your own life. Recognizing that true mastery requires the development of unconscious competence can help you be patient with the slow process of procedural learning and understand why certain skills require thousands of hours of practice to fully develop. The persistence of procedural memories also suggests the importance of being mindful about which behavioral patterns you allow to become automatic. Habits and routines that get proceduralized through repetition can become remarkably difficult to change later, making it important to consciously choose which behaviors you want to become automatic. As you settle into sleep tonight, you might notice how many of your bedtime routines operate through procedural memory. Your hands know how to brush your teeth, your body knows how to get comfortable in bed, your breathing knows how to slow into sleep patterns. These automatic behaviors represent the accumulated wisdom of thousands of nights of practice. Let yourself appreciate the remarkable gift of procedural memory, the way your brain can learn complex skills so thoroughly that they become effortless extensions of your intentions. In the approaching sleep, your procedural memory systems will continue their quiet work, consolidating the day's practiced movements and automatic behaviors, ensuring that tomorrow you'll still know how to walk, how to speak, how to navigate the 1,000 automatic skills that make human life possible. The persistence of these embodied memories connects you to all the previous versions of yourself who practiced and learned these skills. In the wisdom of your hands and the knowledge of your muscles, you carry forward the patient learning of your past selves, creating the foundation of competence that allows your conscious mind to focus on meaning, creativity, and connection rather than the basic mechanics of being human. Your smartphone contains more photographs than most people took in their entire lifetimes, just a generation ago. Your social media profiles preserve casual thoughts and observations that would have vanished into oblivion before the digital age. Your search history, email archive, and digital communications create an exhaustive record of your interests, relationships, and daily activities that exceeds anything that previous generations could have imagined. We are the first humans in history to live with comprehensive external memories that capture and preserve the minutiae of daily existence. This digital revolution isn't just changing how we store information, it's fundamentally altering how human memory itself operates, creating new forms of memory, palace-built not from imagined architecture, but from digital fragments scattered across clouds and devices. The concept of external memory is as old as human civilization. The invention of writing represented the first major augmentation of biological memory, allowing humans to store information outside their brains and transmit knowledge across generations. But digital external memory operates on an entirely different scale and with radically different characteristics than anything humans have previously experienced. Dr. Merlin Donald, a cognitive scientist studying the evolution of human cognition, describes the current era as the beginning of hybrid thinking, cognitive processes that seamlessly integrate biological and technological memory systems. Your mind no longer operates as an isolated biological system, but as part of a larger cognitive ecosystem that includes your devices, networks, and digital archives. This hybrid cognition changes not just what you remember, but how you remember. When you know that information is easily accessible through external search, your brain allocates less effort to encoding and retaining that information internally. Psychologist Betsy Sparrow demonstrated this Google effect by showing that people remember less information when they believe it will be available later, but they remember more about where to find it. The implications extend far beyond simple facts to the very structure of autobiographical memory. Traditional autobiographical memory was necessarily selective. Your brain could only preserve the most meaningful, frequently rehearsed, or emotionally significant experiences. The vast majority of daily life disappeared into forgetting, leaving only highlighted moments in memory's archive. Digital external memory changes this equation dramatically. Your phone's photo gallery creates visual records of mundane moments that would never have been preserved in biological memory. Social media posts capture fleeting thoughts and casual observations. Location data tracks your movements with precision that exceeds your conscious awareness. For the first time in human history, the ordinary texture of daily life is being preserved in unprecedented detail. This comprehensive documentation creates new forms of memory experience that previous generations never encountered. When social media platforms surface memories from years past, showing you photos or posts from the same date in previous years, they're creating artificial reminiscence triggers that bypass your brain's natural memory selection processes. These algorithmically curated memories can feel surprisingly powerful, often evoking strong emotional responses to moments you had completely forgotten. But they also raise profound questions about authenticity and agency in memory formation. When external systems determine which memories are highlighted and rehearsed, how does this influence your sense of identity and personal narrative? The phenomenon of digital amnesia suggests that easy access to external information may be weakening certain aspects of internal memory. Studies show that people increasingly struggle to remember information they know is available online, a form of cognitive offloading that may have unintended consequences for memory development and retention. Children growing up with comprehensive digital documentation face unique challenges and opportunities. Many young people today have visual records of their entire lives, from birth photos shared on social media to comprehensive documentation of their childhood activities. This creates possibilities for memory formation that no previous generation has experienced, but also raises questions about privacy, autonomy, and the development of natural forgetting processes. The concept of lifelogging, comprehensive digital recording of personal experiences, represents the extreme endpoint of external memory development. Researchers and technology enthusiasts have experimented with wearing cameras that automatically capture images throughout the day, sensors that monitor physiological responses, and devices that record conversations and environmental sounds. Dr. Gordon Bell, a computer scientist who spent years recording nearly every aspect of his life, discovered both benefits and challenges of comprehensive lifelogging. The detailed records allowed him to retrieve information and experiences that would have been completely forgotten, but the sheer volume of data also created overwhelming storage and retrieval challenges. The curation problem emerges as a central challenge in digital external memory. While biological memory naturally selects and filters experiences, digital memory systems tend to preserve everything equally. This creates vast archives of information, but often makes it difficult to find relevant memories when they're needed. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are increasingly being applied to solve these curation challenges. Photo organization systems automatically tag faces, locations, and events. Email systems suggest relevant past communications. Social media algorithms surface potentially relevant memories based on date, location, or content analysis. But algorithmic curation introduces new forms of bias and selection that may differ significantly from natural memory processes. AI systems might emphasize visually striking images over emotionally meaningful moments, or prioritize frequently accessed information over personally significant but rarely retrieved memories. The social dimensions of digital external memory create unprecedented challenges for privacy and autonomy. When your memories are stored on corporate servers and curated by algorithmic systems, questions arise about who controls your personal history and how external entities might influence your relationship with your own past. The right to be forgotten in digital systems becomes particularly complex when applied to personal memories. Should you have the right to delete digital traces of past experiences? What happens to the memories of others when your digital presence is removed? How do we navigate the tension between memory preservation and the psychological benefits of natural forgetting? The integration of digital and biological memory creates new possibilities for memory enhancement and therapy. Virtual reality systems can immerse people in detailed recreations of past experiences, potentially supporting memory formation for people with memory impairments, or helping process traumatic memories in controlled environments. Digital memory aids can also support aging populations dealing with memory decline. Sophisticated reminder systems, photo-based memory triggers, and comprehensive life documentation can help maintain autobiographical memory and personal identity, even when biological memory systems begin to fail. The phenomenon of phantom vibration syndrome, feeling like your phone is vibrating when it isn't, suggests that digital devices are becoming neurologically integrated with biological memory and attention systems. Your brain develops automatic responses and attention patterns related to digital communications that operate below conscious awareness. The compression of temporal experience in digital memory creates new forms of temporal confusion. Social media timelines mix content from different time periods. Digital archives, collapsed temporal distances, and algorithmic content suggestion can make recent and distant memories feel equally present and accessible. This temporal flattening may be contributing to the psychological experience of accelerated time that many people report in the digital age. When past and present become equally accessible through digital interfaces, the natural temporal gradients that organize biological memory may become disrupted. The democratization of memory preservation through digital technology has profound cultural implications. Previously, only significant public figures or wealthy individuals had their lives comprehensively documented. Now, ordinary people create detailed archives of their experiences that exceed what was previously available to historians studying important figures. This shift may be changing how future historians and social scientists study human life. Instead of relying on official records and intentional documentation, they'll have access to vast archives of casual communications, private photographs, and detailed behavioral data that reveal the texture of ordinary life in unprecedented detail. The environmental costs of digital memory preservation raise important questions about sustainability and value. Data centers consume enormous amounts of energy to preserve digital memories, much of which may never be accessed again. The carbon footprint of comprehensive memory preservation may force difficult choices about what deserves to be remembered. Understanding digital external memory can help you make more intentional choices about how you document and preserve your experiences. Recognizing that digital systems change how your biological memory operates can help you develop strategies for maintaining the benefits of both natural and artificial memory systems. The practice of digital minimalism in memory preservation involves consciously choosing which experiences to document and preserve, rather than automatically capturing everything. This might involve being more selective about photography, more intentional about social media posting, and more conscious about the long-term implications of digital memory creation. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you might reflect on how your digital devices have become extensions of your memory system in ways that would have seemed magical to previous generations. The smartphone beside your bed contains a vast archive of your experiences, relationships, and thoughts that connects you to your past selves and distant friends in ways that transcend biological memory. Yet this external memory exists in parallel with the ancient biological memory systems that evolved over millions of years. Your brain still performs its nightly work of consolidating and integrating experiences, still selects and filters according to evolutionary priorities that digital systems can't replicate. In the approaching sleep, biological and digital memory systems temporarily disconnect, allowing your brain to process the day's experiences according to its own ancient wisdom. Let yourself appreciate both the remarkable capabilities of digital external memory and the irreplaceable functions of biological memory. The way your sleeping brain will weave today's experiences into the ongoing story of who you are, selecting and preserving according to criteria that no algorithm can fully capture. The future will likely bring even deeper integration between biological and digital memory systems, but the fundamental human need for meaning, connection, and identity will continue to depend on the remarkable biological memory systems that create the continuity of consciousness across time. In the gentle space between digital documentation and biological forgetting, your sleeping mind continues its ancient work of transforming experience into wisdom, fragments into narratives, and moments into the lasting memories that make you who you are.